So, John, what is the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you while camping?
Well, I mean, it'd be hard to top that time I got too drunk to pitch a tent at your family's house and inadvertently flashed your sister.
Yeah,
you must have known that was going to come up.
That's a one. Yeah, I wasn't sure which one you'd pick. I've been involved in many of these stories.
True, yeah. I mean, I'd be concerned if that wasn't the worst. I think that's the worst one. Yeah. So yeah, we were driving up for your. It wasn't a wedding. It was just a trip to Wales, wasn't it?
I think it was my brother's 30th.
Your brother's 30th. That was it. So your brother's 30th birthday. Harry, if you don't know, his family have a little bit of land in Wales. It's very nice, very very stereotypically Welsh countryside with sheep on the fields. And we drove up, and you were driving, weren't you? And a bunch of our friends who are terrible influencers got me, not you. You weren't drunk. You were driving, but got me very very drunk on the drive up.
They would have liked to have got me drunk too.
If they could have got away with it, they would have done. So
Finn, it was awful. It was a 4-hour drive, and I've got 3 people who were all completely wrecked. They finished off a bottle of champagne before you even left Leeds. They also finished off most of a crate of beer and I think a whole bottle of whiskey. It was rough.
I remember getting out of the car because I felt fine. I was having a great time. I was like, oh, it's nice to be drinking on a road trip. How much fun! And I remember about an hour before we got to Wales, we stopped at a service station, and I remember specifically stepping out of the car and just going, oh fuck, like just realizing how drunk I was, and after that there was just no going back. So.
No, it didn't stop him. I mean,
no.
Somebody else in the car threw a shoe at my head while I was driving on the motorway. The shoe then landed in the steering wheel. None of this was good at all.
Dear me.
Yeah, it was a bit rough.
It just goes to show you the Canadian in me is telling all listeners alcohol and camping are never a good combination.
So, John, what happened to you in the field then?
Oh god, this is gonna be a long intro.
It's one of those ones.
Short version: we arrived in Wales. I was immediately passed out by the fire. Passed out in numerous places. One of which being the fire. One of which being leaning against a tree with my pants around my ankles because I fell asleep while peeing. Eventually, Harry made the good point that I was far too drunk to possibly be expected to put a tent up, so he petitioned his family to let me sleep on the sofa for the first night, which they did. So I kind of staggered into the living room, got on the sofa, and
you're starting to make this sound like this was my fault. I don't remember offering that sofa to you.
I ended up on the sofa, put a blanket around myself, and went to sleep. But the problem is that I sleep naked. And instinct kicks in. So even though I was in someone else's house and using a blanket that was not my own, instinct just kicked in, and I just kind of became nude. And then his sister, who I've met all of 5 or 6 times, came in to check on me and realised that the blanket I had wrapped myself in was actually her school art project. Her textiles project.
It got her an A star in GCSE.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah.
How old was your sister at this point?
Mid-20s.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a current project.
It wasn't okay. It wasn't
that could have been a
child.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Yeah. But so she tried to gently remove the project from my person and got an eye shot full of more than she bargained for, and didn't really speak to me for the rest of the weekend. Yeah, I'm a great house guest.
It's never been forgotten in the Chapel family.
No, I'm sure it's gone down in Chapel history. I've been back since, and it's always mentioned. It's like there's always an eye out for what I'm going to get into next. But
yeah, my parents love you very much, but they love you mainly just for the different scrapes that you get yourself into.
Yeah, I'm a wild card. Keep things interesting.
Not in a good way. Make some good stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Some films are fine just the way they are. Other films sometimes take it way too far. But really, how bad could it get? Let's go beyond the box set.
Welcome everybody to Beyond the Box Set, the podcast where today we are pitching prequels, sequels and spin-offs to Moonrise Kingdom. We'll also be pitching some drinking games and hearing from our listeners with the submissions they've put on our social media pages. But first we're going to talk through some of our favourite moments and give a bit of a plot summary. I'm Harry, the host with the most wildlife experience.
I think that's it, without undoubtable. That is without question true, yes.
Yeah. I'm joined today by Finn Ross Russell, hello.
Hiya.
The guest with the best chances of survival in the wild.
Okay, I'll take that.
And joining me as always, the co-host who couldn't pitch a pop-up tent if he tried really hard. It's John Lucas.
I have tried on many occasions and never succeeded. Yes.
They pitched themselves, John. That's the point.
Well, they always pitch themselves when you kind of act really pathetic and get a friend to do it, which is what I always do. So.
The key is to just keep the instructions on hand. Once you do that, it's fairly simple from there.
Well.
Sorry, I'm going full Canadian here. This is terrible.
Don't try and explain to John how to pitch a tent. You'll be here all day.
No.
Okay.
We've got an episode to do.
Just go in one ear, out the other. Yeah, so.
Okay.
So Finn is one of our Patreon supporters. So
Yes.
Thank you for that, Finn.
Proud of it.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself. You've got a podcast, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. So I'm Finn. I run a company called Island Life Productions up in Edinburgh. We have done lots of different bits and pieces. We've done some theatre, some film. But currently, because money is tight and because it's way easier to do, we're branching out into audio bits and pieces. And John and Harry have been really helpful in giving bits of information and giving advice and just generally being an inspiration for podcasters out there, which is why I became a Patreon member. But yes, I have a podcast called Passport People, in which I talk to people about the places that matter to them. So it can be where they're from, where they live, where their family's from, all types of different things. We have a full season 1 that you can check out on all good podcasting platforms, and season 2 coming in March. And then I'm also currently working with a group of actors and theatre people in Edinburgh to put a fiction podcast together, which I'll save information about till the plugging point, because I've already done too much plugging at the beginning. Gotta hold back on the plug.
Got lots to plug.
That does sound very exciting.
Yeah, lots going on. Never
Cool.
a dull
So
day.
you've brought Moonrise Kingdom to us.
I
today.
have, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. John, what do you think?
Oh no, I really enjoyed this. This was my first time watching this film. And I like Wes Anderson films quite a lot, but I've not seen all of them. We did Royal Tenenbaums last year, I believe,
think
which
so, yeah.
was also the first time I'd seen that.
This is only the second Wes Anderson film we're bringing to the show.
Yes, you're
It's
right.
very exciting.
We haven't. We did Isle of Dogs on the bonus show. We reviewed it, but we've not ever done a sequel to it yet. And then we haven't got around to Grand Budapest yet. So, but I'm sure we'll get around to a lot of them in due time. But I really enjoyed it. This is very Wes Anderson.
Oh yeah.
This made me think this is like the Royal Tenenbaums mixed with the Goonies, which is it's a combination I never thought I needed, but I like it.
Did not see that coming.
So, what about you? Why did you choose to bring this film to us?
It's interesting. I speak to a lot of people who are older than me who have seen this film, who go to me and they say, isn't this film a little bit creepy that this sort of adult director is getting these kids to, kiss on screen, and that this is what the base of the film is about? But the thing is, for me, when this film came out in 2012, I was 15. And so it's that classic thing of seeing a coming-of-age film that you connect with at the point at which you are coming of age, and just being able to see yourself a lot in the different elements of those two main characters. And me, I'm a pretty romantic guy. I love a good love story, and this film for me is a perfect combination of those two, mixed with Wes Anderson's amazing ability to see films and to make everything seem colourful and bright and wonderful and magical, and brilliant acting all round, not just from the usual suspects, the Bill Murray, the Tilda Swinton, the Bruce Willis, but also the two kids who I think are just brilliant.
Oh, they make it. I think if those kids weren't, because I'm very hit or miss with child actors. Sometimes I find them insufferable. Sometimes I really like them. But if these didn't work, if the tone wasn't right, it could be creepy. Like I said, it could come off as a bit like, what was that Brooke Shields film, The Blue Lagoon or something. It could come off a little bit inappropriate, or it could just be insufferably annoying. You need the kid, and these kids are just perfect. Like, they are such good finds, the two of them.
Yeah, and they fit perfectly into his style as well, which I think is very tricky. As much as I love Wes Anderson, as much as I like to imagine that anybody can just slot into that style, I think you don't want somebody who's going to take everything too seriously. I think that's the reason somebody like Bill Murray and Owen Wilson have always been perfect for his films, is because they've gotten the vision, they've gotten the story, and they understand that they are a part of everything that's going on around them, as opposed to a film where it's very much about the acting performances.
Everyone's like, a lot happens in this film. Like, there's a lot of incidents. You know, it's quite dramatic. I mean, literally, it ends, spoiler alert, with, you know, a lightning striking a church and them hanging for it. But despite all of that, like, it feels like it's quite deadpan, which is often the case with his films. The characters never go above a certain level of, you know, energy, which I think works really well, because it's a very Wes Anderson-y like feeling that it makes them very unique to him. But I think it makes the kids. I think it improves the kids' performances in many ways, because it doesn't push them beyond their limits, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily see Edward Norton's character being completely ruined and just completely overdramatic.
Yeah.
But again, he gets it perfectly, because again, I think he gets the vision of what Wes Anderson wants, and that's the reason I get so annoyed about how undervalued he is in the film industry in general. When Grand Budapest Hotel won, I think, the 5 or 6 technical Oscars that it won, every single person who got up and made their speech, whether it was the costume, the production design, the score, the first thing that all of them did, rather than thank the normal people who they could thank, their parents and their significant others, they thanked Wes. And someday I think he will win an Oscar and he will get recognised for it. And I was really annoyed this didn't get more attention than it did, but for now I'm part of the Wes Anderson needs more attention brigade, and we'll continue to wave that flag on this podcast.
Yeah, I think his time will come, definitely. But yeah, I agree. I think sometimes it's very. I think a lot of people find it very easy to just go, "Oh, well, he's just quirky."
Yeah,
and then that as if and then there's nothing underneath it. It's just. But actually, I think there's a real emotional core to this film. It's not just like, maybe even more so than stuff like Tenenbaum's. Like, it's got a real heart to it. I really rooted for the kids, and like I really believed in them. And you know, even though there were certain elements that, you know, if you really took a step back, you might think, well, you know, with them getting married again, in any other kind of director doing that, it would just seem silly. But you actually genuinely believe in them, and you think, yeah, these crazy kids might just make it. You know, so yeah.
You badged in seamanship?
Yes, sir.
Good. There's a cold water crabber moored off Broken Rock. The skipper owes me an IOU. We'll see if he can take you on as a claw cracker. Won't be an easy life, but it's better than shock therapy.
Thank you, sir. By the way, where's the chapel test?
Back there, at the Padre's home with the mumps. Why do you ask?
I want to bring my wife. But we're not married yet.
You his girl?
Yes.
Technically, I'm a civil law scrivener. I'm authorized to declare births, deaths, and marriages. You're kind of young. You got a license. I can't offer you a legally binding union. It won't hold up in the state, the county, or frankly any courtroom in the world due to your age, lack of a license, and failure to get parental consent. But the ritual does carry a very important moral weight within yourselves. You can't enter into this lightly. Look into my eyes. Do you love each other?
Yes, we do.
But think about what I'm saying. Are you sure you're ready for this?
Yes, we are.
They're not listening to me. Let me rephrase it.
Oh, we're in a hurry.
Are you chewing? Spit out the gum, sister.
Should we do a little plot summary then? I guess, Finn, this is for you to whiz
to go in.
through. Yeah.
See, this was the one bit that I actually didn't write down, because
I think it's better not to.
Well, yeah, I was kind of like, from listening to podcasts, I always enjoy it when it's more of a sort of, we're trying to remember exactly how this was put together. So I think it's safe to say, although there's a sort of Benjamin Britten orchestra bit at the beginning, I think the film really starts at Camp Ivanhoe, which is a camp on the fictional island, I believe, of New Penzance, which is supposedly somewhere off New England, I think, so sort of Western Atlantic sort of area.
Again, it's very class associated. I feel like that's kind of a classic Wes Anderson thing. I've noticed a lot of his films that I've seen, like Royal Tenenbaum. It's not on a literal island, but it's a very self-enclosed space where the characters don't really integrate with the outside world very much. It's its own little world in itself.
And I think he made this film like that. One of the first shots of the film you see is this map of New Penzance Island and then St. Jack, which is either one of the larger islands or a bit of the mainland. It's never made entirely clear, but it's very clear with the way he's designed this map and put all the details into bits that we never actually explore in the film. This, I think, was probably a dream for him to make, because he literally created this space where, as far as he was concerned, anything goes.
Yeah. I was amazed at like reading up about the some behind the scenes stuff, just the level of how much he created, even down to the books that Susie reads. I assumed they were just classic children's books, but no, he made them up. Like they're all just things he's created. There's nothing that he's taken from the outside world. It's all his vision, which is amazing.
Yeah. Which I should also flag is something that he's definitely developed over time, because I mean, a few weeks ago I watched Steve Zissou. I sort of rewatched it, and that was again very clearly a case of he's just come off Royal Tenenbaums, and the producer has said, right, here's more money, go and do this. And as much as I love Wes Anderson, I think Steve Zissou is probably my least favourite Wes Anderson film, because there's not as much emotional connection, and I think he came out of that experience and realized that there were things that he needed to tweak and to change and to expand on and develop. And I think Moonrise Kingdom is the first time that you see Wes Anderson's pure, unadulterated vision mixed with high quality production budget and costume and score, and seeing the way it all comes together. But anyway, this is getting off track from the plot summary.
So they're on the island.
They're on the island. We're at Camp Ivanhoe. This is sort of where we are introduced to everything, and we are introduced to Edward Norton, who is the leader of this scout troop.
First thing I noticed, was that there are some people who do not suit shorts. Edward Norton should never wear shorts. It really tickled me. His skinny little chicken legs in those shorts were just... I could not take my eyes off them.
There was a lot of great short action.
Yeah, there was.
I'm sure we'll come on to this with drinking games.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But...
Great short action. So he's leading this sort of a troop, the scout troop.
I love his opening scene where he's just walking through the camp and just kind of ignoring but kind of noticing all these massive health and safety issues.
Oh yeah. I mean, we'll get on to this later. I mean, as somebody whose job it is to look after the welfare of young people, I look at Edward Norton's character and go, what on earth are you doing? This is horrendous childcare that you are allowing, that you're even vaguely allowing any of this to happen. But anyway, and actually this is funny, because basically the first thing that happens in this film is that he notices that one of his scouts is gone. Now again, as I've already stated, I'm part Canadian. I've been to these sort of classic North American, summer camp in the wilderness type things. And the idea that a kid can just leave their tent and somehow unsupervised, with nobody knowing, could just sneak out in the middle of an island covered in all sorts of
Clearly
stuff.
planned it. He Shawshanked his way
I was going to say, I love that he Shawshanked as well.
But yeah, it's again, my health and safety hat is very firmly on with that bit. So they learn that this scout has escaped. They immediately inform the police, who sets out to investigate the situation and goes all over the island. The
police officer being Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
In what I believe is his last role as an actor who cares.
Yeah, he was giving me like a lot of Sam Rockwell energy in this.
He was, yeah.
I could really imagine Sam Rockwell playing this role, like that harried law enforcement guy. But
But Bruce Willis, I think what Bruce Willis adds to this role as well is he's slightly older, which again, it's nice. It gives this sort of like fatherly figure, but like much older fatherly figure.
Yeah.
Like, you expect him to be one of these sort of wise characters that knows a lot about the world and has all this sage advice, and then actually he's not that, and that contrasts nicely with Sam, who is this very mature sort of adolescent.
Yeah,
and that dynamic goes nicely together.
Well, because he has his own little. I think the difference between like the contrast like between the child relationship in the film and also like the Bill Murray and Frances McDormand characters who are these older parents again, and I think again them all being a little older than you might expect, like it adds that little tinge of like sadness and disappointment where they're like, none of them are particularly happy with where they are in their lives, and they're all kind of like living with a lot of regret and disappointments, and so that made, I think you're right, that especially the relationship between him and Frances McDormand, it made it just that little bit more bittersweet because they're that little bit older than say if they were in their 30s or 40s necessarily. So
I completely agree. So anyway, as part of Bruce Willis's investigation, he goes and finds this couple and asks if they've seen this boy. Their relationship, the Frances McDormand Bill Murray relationship, is quite funny because they're both lawyers.
Yeah.
And they both take being lawyers into absolutely everything that they do. Which must get so annoying. I mean, I know plenty of lawyers and none of them do that.
Yeah.
But if they did do that, it would be the end of my relationship with them very
Yeah.
quickly.
I think you can understand why the relationships with their children are not great. Like, I don't think they're like gold star parenting, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, talk about the bad childcare.
Yeah.
We'll get more onto that later.
Camp Ivanhoe, that's all the way across the other side of the island. You really think a 12-year-old boy could row this far in a miniature canoe?
Most likely not.
It is possible, Counselor.
I disagree, Counselor. It would take him 3 days at least.
I don't think so.
Well, I'm not going to argue about it.
Be that as it may, will you let me know if you've seen anything unusual?
So that happens. We eventually are brought over to where Sam is, who's the boy who's run away. Oh, yes, there's another thing we learn during Bruce Willis's investigation. He calls Sam's foster parents.
Oh, yes.
As a matter of precaution. Except Bruce Willis doesn't know that these parents are foster parents.
Yeah.
He just assumes they're normal parents. So when he rings them up, he's greeted with the response, yes, and we'd like to let you know that we can't let him back.
Yeah.
So
that was real brutal. Like, I really felt for the kid in that scene. It was so harsh.
that can't
He didn't
possibly
seem to
be
care.
something
No,
that a foster parent is allowed to do. I
Yeah.
don't know how it worked in the 60s in America, but that foster parents, it can't possibly be a sort of optional.
Yeah, just
Do you want a return policy on this kid?
Within 28 days, yeah, money back, yeah.
Particularly because it sounds like he'd been with that family for quite a long time anyway.
But then also, when do you think that this was set?
The film was set in
1964.
Oh, did it say?
Yeah, it's set at
Yes.
the
Oh,
beginning.
right. Oh,
Okay.
Sorry, this is the kind of thing I noticed having seen this film for the 10th time. But
I just assumed that this film was one of those films that could be set anytime.
Yeah, sure.
Because nothing really dates it as like
Yeah,
in the
no.
60s.
No, I think
it's only the
incidental.
Noyes Floodle poster that really
Yeah.
does it, to be honest. Other than that,
And some of the
you
music,
wouldn't
protect maybe like they listen to a lot of French like 60s new, which they could still listen to at any time. But yeah, but yeah, I liked that. Not only does Bruce Willis not know that the kid is an orphan, also Edward Norton does not know, and then he's completely befuddled by this. And then they're like, "Well, we explained it in the letter," and then he just picks up this pile of unopened letters, and again we see an insight into what a terrible camp leader Edward is. Like, doesn't open any mail.
But also like, he does know that that Sam is the least popular.
Yes.
By quite a margin.
Yeah.
And literally everybody else, including little young Lucas Hedges.
Oh, baby Lucas Hedges. Yeah.
He also everybody knows that he's an orphan.
Yeah.
All the scouts know that he's an orphan.
Yeah.
And they say it to him all the time.
Yeah. He's just not taking it in. Yeah.
So Ed Norton has managed to not take that in, but has managed to take in that he's not popular.
Yeah.
Like, the boys must just be being mean to him.
Yeah.
It's calling him an orphan, calling him names.
So anyway, we meet Sam, who's in a canoe, and then hides the canoe, and then comes into a meadow where he meets Susie, who is the girl that we see towards the beginning, and who is also the daughter of Bill Murray and Frances McDormand. We don't know anything about this character up till now, so these two characters meeting in this meadow are sort of the beginning of us clocking that something is going on. And immediately we're given a flashback to a year earlier when there was a performance of Noyes Floodle, which is Benjamin Britten's famous opera about Noah's Ark and Genesis and the flood and all that jazz. In which...
And all that jazz.
It's a different musical, Harry.
In which Sam is an audience member who gets curious and leaves us again. Bad scouts supervision. This kid, who I assume is like 11 or 12, has just gotten out of his seat during a performance and has left the church, and we're not concerned at all about where he might have gone. We're just like, nah, okay. But anyway, so he ends up going below the church is where this all seems to happen, which is sort of the backstage area. And again, I question the supervision in this film, because then finds his way into the girls' dressing room. Fortunately, they're all like clothed and there and ready, and he just sort of starts making conversation with them, and particularly takes an interest in the Raven, who we learn's name is Susie, who is the girl who we have just met in the meadow a second ago.
Yeah.
And it then goes on to transpire that she gave him her address and they exchanged letters for the subsequent year, as we come to learn, and that they are planning to run away together, which is what they are doing at this point.
And
it's a classic sort of 12-year-old thing to do. Hey, let's run away together. And
yeah. I love how impractically she had packed for this trip.
it was incredible.
We'll get to this,
When she reveals that she's got a suitcase and it's just full of books, I'd be like, if I was him, I'd be like, I am done with this. I'm going the other way.
Go home.
This is like I've been lugging that up and down cliffs for you, and it's just full of books.
Reading is fundamental.
The kitten.
She didn't bring any clothes.
That's true. Yeah, she did bring an incredibly quiet and well-behaved cat.
Yeah.
Who's way less annoying than the cats I know.
Yeah. It doesn't make a sound.
So, I'm trying to think the order of which this happens. So they run away, don't they? And there's kind of a long sequence. About a third of the film is basically just them just getting to know each other. They're very sweet little romances playing out. You know, he's a very good scout. He's very practical, and she's kind of just follows what he says and kind of goes. I enjoyed the fact that there was not a lot of conflict between them. Like, there's one brief moment when she reveals that the reason that she doesn't have a good relationship with her parents is that or one of the many reasons, she found a book under her mum's bed that was called How to Deal with Troubled Children, and inferred that it was about her, obviously. And he laughs at that. He finds that funny, and she takes offence to that. And then they have a brief spat, but it immediately resolves itself because they just really believe in each other so much. Like, so he immediately apologizes and he says, "I'm on your side," and she says, "I know," and then that's it. Like, I just love all of the conversations they had. Like, when they're writing letters as well, like, they're very wise. They give each other really good advice about like how to deal with their various problems, and I really liked it managed to not feel too precocious though. It felt like they weren't being wise beyond their years. They were a little bit, but they were talking in very straightforward ways. They just happened to have this real strong connection, and they really, really needed each other. And that's why I thought it was quite a believable relationship in many ways, even though it was obviously a bit heightened. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as you get older, relationships just get more and more complicated, and things matter, and it becomes. Relationships start becoming this thing of like scores you need to settle and things you need to prove, and it's as much of a conversation about yourself as it is about whoever you're with in a relationship. Whereas the sweet innocence of the way that this relationship is built is that actually there's none of that. This is just two people who really care about each other, who don't really know anything, who haven't been sort of complicated by the effects of sort of what happens as you get older, and these things just get way deeper than ooh, I like you, ooh, you like me.
And that's why, I mean, skipping ahead a little bit, that's why personally I didn't really have a problem with the more, it's not a sex scene, but with the scene of them French kissing and getting undressed and stuff, because it did feel strangely innocent. Like it was just these kids who were exploring their bodies and themselves.
Just looked loads like, hey, we've seen this in movies.
Yeah,
like,
we're gonna try and
tilt your head to one side.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't feel like they were actually gonna sleep together. It felt like they were just they were just taking little baby steps and exploring.
Exactly. Which again, I must stress, saw this film when I was 15. I really connected into that because that was exactly the experience that I had of those sorts of things going on. You don't really know what you're doing, and you're kind of scared about, is this tiny little thing you do going to completely ruin everything? And you're kind of going off, well, in my case, Disney films, but, in the case of these kids, what they read in books and what they heard of. And there's something really nice about being able to go into that part of you and acknowledge that this is a perfectly real part of existence. And yeah, it might have been a little bit awkward to film, but I also could have imagined that they would have been very careful about the way that they broached the subject of that sort of thing with the two actors, and making sure that they were okay with it and they were happy.
I would like to think so, definitely. Yeah. One of my favorite lines in the film, actually, just because I found it really sweet, was when he said, in this kind of sequence of the film, he says, "I might wet the bed, just so you know." And she's like, okay. It was just so sweet again, because that really pulls it back to they are children.
Yeah. It's that perfect sort of balancing act in between of you deserve to be taken seriously, but there's also an acknowledgement that you have a lot to learn and develop and understand about the world. Anyway, so they're on their journey. Meanwhile, the investigation is going on, spearheaded by Bruce Willis. I'm thinking of Edward Norton, so it's straight in Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis and Edward Norton with the scout troop, who have all decided that if they find Sam, they're going to get really violent.
Disturbingly violent.
We still don't understand.
When they pull out all the weapons, like the rusty like nails in the club, and like the actual bow and arrow, which of course ends up killing Snoopy, which is, a bit of a Wes Anderson.
Snoopy.
A bit of a Wes Anderson theme I've noticed. Dead dogs, like, because the dog dies in Royal Tenenbaums as well, doesn't it? Little Barkley, and then does anyone die in Isle of Dogs or?
No.
Someone must die in Isle of Dogs.
I mean, it's the most
dogs do. It's the most kid friendly that I've seen.
Yeah, there's the bit when you think the dogs have all died, and then it turns out they've not. But, but he does. He either loves dogs or hates them. I can't tell, but he definitely likes to kill them off.
I think one of the things he acknowledges. I mean, again, I had a dog growing up, and anybody who has a dog when they're a kid, by the time you become a young adult, that dog probably dies.
Yeah,
and I see this film as full of dramaturgical quirks, like the Genesis theme that's running out throughout the whole thing. And this dead dog is another one of those things where it's very much the death of innocence. You look at dogs when you're a kid and you think, oh, it's so cute. And then you get older and, you realise the responsibilities of taking care of it and looking after it, and the extent to which, particularly if you're 18 and you want to go to university, that you can't be responsible, and then 3-4 years later the dog will probably die, and that feels very sad. That feels very horrible. That's not the way this turns out in the film, but as a sort of separate
this dog meets a much stickier end than that.
But so anyway, so the scout troop meets Sam and Susie.
They track them down.
There's a sort of Mexican standoff type thing. And then it's unclear exactly what happens, because there's a very sort of quick montage.
Yeah, they cut away from the violence, which I like, because it leaves all to imagination. Because Susie constantly references that she has like rage issues, like she loses her temper, but you never see her do it on screen. It cuts away, but basically she stabs Lucas Hedges with a pair of scissors and almost punches an artery.
Yeah, so Lucas Hedges comes on like a motorcycle.
Yeah, again, why does he have that?
Particularly because this is the second. At the beginning of the film, it's like, this is the second time you've been cycling recklessly. It's like, why was there a first time?
But then I love that they do. Yeah, he cycles up, and then there's a smash cutaway. Next thing we know, he's been stabbed. He's bleeding out. All the other kids are running away in horror. The motorbike is in a tree. Like, she's fully hulked out on him. Like, she's gone wild. Like.
She's gotten the scissors out, and then somehow the dog came into this. I don't know where the dog was, because the dog doesn't turn up in the initial standoff.
No, I can only assume that one of the kids fired an arrow at Susie and Sam. It missed them. The dog happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't think they meant to kill the dog, but
no, they can't possibly.
Very unfortunate dog
collateral
death.
damage.
Very strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the kid goes to hospital because, of course,
by boat,
bleeding from the back.
Yeah,
by boat, by seaplane.
By seaplane, that was it. Yeah,
that's probably the quickest way to get to hospital from the island.
So they go by seaplane. There's a bit of a scuffle between Bill Murray and Frances McDormand and Edward Norton on the pier. The narrator, who has been popping up at various different points, warning that from the beginning of the film that in 3 days' time there will be a flood. That's said to be a really big, massive flood, which again, as we'll learn, ties into the Noah's flood stuff that is also going on in the film. He turns up at this point and claims that he knows where they're going because he taught Sam in the cartography accomplishment.
Yeah, this was very exposition-y. It was like, let's move our chess pieces into the right place. Yeah,
well, they kind of had to, because this is the only way they eventually understand where they're going. Yeah, sure. Which is a place called Mile 3.25 Title.
It's got a very bland name,
or something like that. Which is basically this gorgeous-looking
cove,
private beach cove thing. Yeah. I mean, all I was thinking about that is, well, if someone realised this was here, they'd make a killing off of it.
Yeah. Just to go back for a second, when Frances McDormand and Bill Murray are talking to Bruce Willis about, like, they realise their daughter has also gone missing. Frances McDormand, she finds the letters between the two kids.
Oh, yes.
Which I enjoyed the way she just threw away the line. There's some paintings, mostly landscapes, but some nudes.
Yeah.
Like, again, that's what I mean. Most actors in other films would play that. Like, she'd be screaming it, be chewing scenery, but she just kind of says it so matter of fact. It makes it even funnier. It's just and some nudes of my 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, again, this is what Wes Anderson does so well in his directing style. Grand Budapest Hotel is full of these moments. But anyway, so they're at this beach. They're, you know, having their experience diving into the water, getting to know each other. Sam piercing Susie's ears?
Yes, with the fish hooks.
Which I've always found that a more disturbing scene than the
romantic stuff.
Scene that comes later.
It is. It's because then the blood's going right down her neck.
It's going right down her neck. I mean, that could easily get infected.
I was thinking, I hope she got some shots when she got back home. Like, my God.
They get found.
They do, yeah.
The next day, basically.
Doesn't take long, does it?
No.
Doesn't
small
take
island,
long.
Yeah.
They get found. Susie gets brought back by Bill Murray and Frances McDormand. Sam gets brought back by the scout troop, but because he does not have a foster family to go to, gets brought into the care of Bruce Willis, who has agreed to take him, and this is where social services come into play.
I love that is just her name.
That's her name, yes!
This is Tilda Swinton, another Wes Anderson stalwart. And, I mean, I could talk for hours about her outfit. Like, what was that? She was dressed like a traffic cone almost. I don't know how these long purple like pantsuits with the top hat and the
what kind of weird traffic cones have you seen?
And maybe traffic cones not
purple ones wearing hats.
Maybe that's not the right thing. No, I mean not a traffic cone there. She was. I don't know. She was dressed like. I really can't figure it out. But what did she look like? It was just odd to me. Like she
looked like Tilda Swinton.
She looked like Tilda Swinton. She was doing a Tilda Swinton bit.
Tilda's fashion.
Yeah. It was very. I mean, she carried it off as she always does. But
in very sort of like what I would imagine a sort of artistic Trunchbull.
Yes.
To wear.
Yeah. Trunchbull's hipster sister.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because it's interesting, because I think there is an element of sort of Roald Dahl weirdness that very much goes, and sort of Quentin Blake illustration that goes into the way that those characters are styled.
Obviously those two streams met when he did Fantastic Mr. Fox. So
yes, exactly.
So yes, I can well imagine that was an influence. Yeah.
But even the use of juvenile refuge, which I've never heard anybody use, it's very much pictured out to be this thing of like, it's not an orphanage, it's even worse.
They really ramp it up. Like he's going to get like, she's very casually cruel, this social I think the fact that she doesn't have a name just it's obviously, I think it's meant to represent just how dehumanized her job is, that she's not even a person anymore. She literally is just social services personified. And so she kind of very casually says, oh well, you know, he's been a troubled child for a while, so we probably can't put him in another home, we'll just have to give him electroshock therapy. Like, it wasn't even him who stabbed her. Like,
different times.
Different terrifying, horrifying times. Yeah.
What's going to happen to him?
Well, normally we try to place him in another foster home, but that option's no longer available to us, in my opinion, due to his case history. Which means he'll go to juvenile refuge.
What does that mean? Is that an orphanage?
Right, an orphanage. But the first step is the admissions panel requires a psychological evaluation to determine whether or not the boy is a candidate for institutional treatment or electroshock therapy.
Excuse me, shock therapy? Why would that be called for? He's not violent.
The report describes an assault with scissors.
That was the girl that did that.
Well, maybe she needs help too, but that's not our job. Okay?
So, Sam. So it's the scout troop.
Yes, the scout
troop.
Really,
the next thing.
Yeah, in that terrifying treehouse that we did. that logic defying. How the hell did they construct that? How did they get up? How did they get down? Treehouse. Yeah. It's like it's on a toothpick.
It's very Wes Anderson.
It is very Wes Anderson. You could say that about a lot of things, but yeah, it did make me laugh.
Yeah, no, that would terrify me. The picture of like a bunch of 12, 13-year-olds going up to that treehouse.
Yeah, and again, go right back to the beginning. When Ed Norton sees the treehouse, he's like, "That's not how you build a treehouse. Why did you build it so high up?" And it's like, how quickly did they build it? Why are you just noticing this now? That would have taken weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, the scout troop. So yes,
that's a whole sequel idea. It's not my sequel idea, but the Edward Norton backstory.
Yeah, I did consider that. I didn't go that route at the end, but that was definitely what I was considering. What
Edward
is his
Norton, a health and safety lawsuit?
Yeah. But yeah, so the scout troop, they kind of take pity on. They kind of have apart from Lucas Hedges, who understandably remains somewhat bitter having been stabbed. But the other scouts
been stabbed.
Yeah, the others have a bit of a change of heart, and they realise that they've treated him Sam unfairly, and they decide to help him out and rescue him and reunite him and Susie, who have been separated. Yeah.
So they do. Mm-hmm. They bring them to St. Jack, which is either a larger island or the mainland. It's never entirely made clear.
Yeah.
But it is where the sort of larger regional fort is, where I don't remember that guy's name.
Harvey Keitel. The scout leader.
No, but the younger guy, because Harvey Keitel is that guy.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Older brother.
Yeah, they have one of the scouts has a cousin who is Jason Jason Schwartzman, is it? Is the actor?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
He's just called Cousin Ed or Cousin Bill or something.
Yeah.
Cousin Ben. That's it.
Yeah,
Cousin Ben.
there we go. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they find this guy who's running the supply and resource tent at Camp Lebanon, which is the larger.
Is he supposed to be like it? Because Harvey Keitel's obviously running this camp. Is Cousin Ben supposed to be an Edward Norton style camp leader or another kid who's like inexplicably 35? I couldn't figure it out.
My guess is that it's a bigger camp, therefore there's more need for various different bits and pieces.
Okay.
Therefore they've got more money, therefore more resources to have things like a supply and resources tent.
Sure. Because if anything, he's even less responsible than Edward Norton.
Oh, definitely.
He literally gives these kids blessing to run away, illegally marries them, and just takes a bribe, and I guess gives the bride to the kids in the end. So, but still, like,
and then takes them to have a happy life as people working on a crab.
Yeah, he's going to work on a crab trawler. Yeah.
I was a little confused by this whole camp. I think it kind of lost me a bit. Just because before now the film had felt very small. Like they're just on an island of like maybe 12, 15 people.
Sure.
That's what it felt like. And then suddenly, oh no, there's enough for not just one scout camp, two scout camps, but one is significantly bigger, like the mother scout camp.
Where are all these children coming from? Are they from the mainland? Like where do they all live? Like, I don't know.
Well, this is why it's never clear whether St. Jack is mainland or if it's a larger island. But I can, from what I know about New England, which is, I admit, very limited, I can totally imagine this is like, oh, are you a sort of New York City living kid? Well, us as a family will come out to this island and we'll send you to do this, and we'll go, actually enjoy our time away from you, type thing. But I can imagine, I mean, I did Outward Bound. I can imagine it easily being a thing in which the larger camp is sort of like the centre for people who don't want the sort of full isolation experience, where I think they had cabins, I'm not sure. But definitely Camp Ivanhoe would have been the smaller, less connected, less to do camp.
Yeah.
So that might have been it. I don't know.
Yeah, probably not worth digging too deep.
No, exactly. Anyway, so Susie leaves her binoculars in the chapel tent again.
Yeah, and actually,
it was a chapel tent.
Yes, we've established that the binoculars are like very important to her. We constantly see her looking through them. They're her she describes it as her magic power. Yeah. So
Sam runs back to get them. Runs into Lucas Hedges.
Yes.
Injured on crutches Lucas Hedges, who very impressively, they get into an argument. As soon as Sam comes towards him, he just throws the crutch to the side, as in this was all a look.
He's ready to fight, yeah. And then does Sam just rip out his stitches?
He certainly starts smacking them really hard. I think Sam has his own violence.
They're definitely both. I think there's a reason these two kids are drawn to each other. They definitely have certain tendencies. Yeah.
I'm just saying that's got abusive relationship in later life.
Well, it's never entirely clear whether Francis McDormand is or is not physically abusing Bill Murray, because he's constantly having black eyes and and he keeps saying, "Oh, I fell over into a ditch or something." But it's
dark undertones.
There's definitely undertones that maybe this bit of rage runs through their whole family. Also, just to jump back a little bit, but we can't not talk about the mannequin in the bed.
Oh yeah, God.
Oh, how I laughed. This nightmarish mannequin. So the scouts help Susie smuggle Susie out of her family home. They put a mannequin in her bed under a sheet to kind of, avoid suspicion. And then we see a scene of her little brother going into her room to ask for his record player back. And then it's like the middle of the night, lightning flashes. The mannequin is on a rope. He pulls the door open. The mannequin sits up, and it's just this absolute nightmare fuel. And it's so I screamed with laughter at that moment. I really did.
No, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
What else? So the alarm gets raised.
Yes.
Back at Camp Lebanon. Everyone at this camp supposedly stops whatever they're doing to track down where Sam is, this guy who they don't know. And Sam gets chased onto a lightning field?
Yes, oh god. The storm is raging now, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, so it started tipping it down.
Yeah.
The kids hide out at the church, which is coincidentally also the...
Well, he's been struck by lightning, just to make it clear.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just a weird thing that happens, and he's fine.
And then he's just got electric in him.
Yeah. Which is obviously nice for the kiss at the end. But I fully thought, oh my god, this film's taken a twist. He's dead. Like, because if not,
I'm okay.
In reality, he would have massive internal bleeding, probably. But again, let's not dig into that.
That's an image.
Yeah.
Also going on at this point, the scouts are being rounded up to be brought to this church.
Yeah.
Harvey Keitel, who's the scout leader, forgets his medicine in his tent. Edward Norton, by this point, has turned up.
Been stripped of his scouts credentials. Yeah.
And then kind of takes over, sort of de facto takes power, guides everyone to the church, including the
he rescues
scout
Harvey
leader,
Keitel.
who he's managed to save by jumping over this flooded river thing.
Oh, those two jumps, man, they made me laugh.
They were great.
They were so good. It reminded me of the scene in Spice World, the movie, where...
I'm sure that's what Wes Anderson was going for.
It reminded me of the scene in Spice World, the movie, where the bus jumps over the bridge. Have you seen that movie?
No.
There's a scene where they're in like the Spice bus, which is like a double-decker bus, and there's a chase scene, and there's like a bridge is opening up. It's a classic action movie cliche. The bridge is rising, and they drive over it, and then they're talking. They're actually pitching. It's a film within a film. They're pitching this action sequence, and then one of the producers says, "Well, that sounds kind of expensive," and then they just cut to like a little claymation, really shoddy, like bus jumping over and it looks intentionally crap. And it kind of reminded me, the jump was just so obviously like phony. Like you can almost see the effect of him being like artificially raised, but it just really made me laugh. Like how shonky it looked, like, which I'm sure was deliberate, but
no,
especially when he's got Harvey Keitel on his back and he does it again, just like fully jumps this,
like without a run up,
with no run up. Yeah, just like it's like he's Super Mario.
Yeah.
But he manages that somehow.
Yes.
They all end up at the church where social services has turned up.
Yes.
By this point, no one can find the kids.
Yes.
At this point, Bruce Willis decides to take it upon himself to start getting really defensive about the fact that electroshock therapy and juvenile refuge are what's coming.
He tries to stick up for Sam, really,
exactly.
to protect him from being taken away. Yeah.
They get into an argument. Somehow they clock where the kids are. Like someone.
They're not hiding
something.
terribly well. They're all dressed as birds, just like staring over the balcony.
Yes, they're all in Neuer's Floodle costume. And then Susie and Sam disappear while the flood is in full rage. Cut to a really nice shot on the roof that's really nice cinematography. It's in full blue,
I like
night kind of thing, which looks really nice. And this scene is a combination of the kids going to the top of this bell tower just so they can jump off, which again is very dramaturgically Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, the storm's still raging, there's still lightning, and they've run out of places to hide, so they're like, we're going to have to jump and swim for it, but we might die. And then they're like, they have a nice kiss. Like, he says something like, just in case we do die, I'm really glad that you met me and you married me.
Because Sam can't swim, despite the fact that he can seemingly do everything.
Yeah, it's the one thing he never learned. Yeah.
And then whilst this is going on, Bruce Willis is chasing them, whilst also on a walkie-talkie to social services, trying to make the case that he should get full custody.
He's having a full
Sam,
litigation,
who might not be alive by the time this full thing finishes, as Bill Murray and Frances McDormand go full lawyer and defend Bruce Willis's rights in him being able to take custody of this guy this 12-year-old boy who wants to get with their daughter and who has run away with them and supposedly put all these terrible ideas in there. I mean, it's a very...
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Like, I'm already lost.
Yeah. They squeeze a lot into the last bit of that film, but they eventually get up there. Bruce Willis successfully manages to convince Sam to not effectively kill himself, which was what they looked like they were going to do. The bell tower gets struck by lightning again. It's really not been Sam's day on this front. And then the film basically sort of begins towards its conclusion with them hanging off a bell tower.
Bruce Willis gets his John McClane moment, essentially.
Yeah.
Which again, I love that like they had this very dramatic moment of like, you know, the kids are hanging off it's very tense, the kids are hanging off the roof, you know, the storm's raging, and he's like, don't let go, and it's like, oh wow, this is really tense, and then it just cuts away, it's like, oh, it was fine, everyone was fine, we don't need to know about how they got down, but it was fine.
The film ends with the narrator talking about how it was really devastating flood, but the crops were great, and we cut to Bill Murray and Frances McDormand's house, where the 3 younger brothers of Susie and Susie are just kind of there, hanging about. We see Sam in full police officer's gear.
Yeah, he's now a deputy to Bruce Willis, which I thought was very cute.
It's very cute, but it's also like... I mean, do you want to dress as whatever... Like, as a kid, is it your dream to dress as whatever your dad's...
Well, I guess he's still... He's not like his birth dad. Maybe he's still...
I know.
Like,
I don't know.
I think he just likes the authority, you know? He likes having authority.
It's a power trip.
Yeah, definitely.
And then they get called to dinner. Sam heads home... And there's just a nice moment where Susie's looking out the window as Sam gets into the police car.
Yeah, it ends on a nice, sweet, romantic note.
The camera cuts down to the painting that Sam's been doing, and it's of the beach with Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah, and that explains the name, because that really blandly named cove, they've named it Moonrise Kingdom.
Which is really nice. I apologise because I took way too much time.
There's a lot to unpack.
Sorry, I can cut you out. It's fine.
That'll be 30 seconds when we get to the show.
Please edit that down, because that was a lot to unpack.
Oh no, yeah.
But yeah, that was Moonrise Kingdom.
No, I think that was very nicely explained. And
it's a very good film.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for bringing it into my life. I know you already knew it, but yeah.
No, I like bringing this to other people's lives, because again, most of the people who I meet have never heard of this film.
Yeah, so it's like,
it's nice to say, go watch this film. It's really good.
Spread it out into the world. So
yeah,
excellent.
Do you ever have a film where you tell like people you go on a date with for the first time, or like friends who you're meeting, oh, if you want to understand me, you have to see this film. With my dad, it was Fever Pitch.
Yeah.
with me, it's this.
Okay. Probably Muriel's Wedding for me.
Yeah,
I always say that's my favourite.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't take much understanding. There's not a lot going on.
What you see is
don't
what you
read too
get.
much into it. Yeah. But yeah, listeners, think about what your answer is to that.
Yeah, let us know.
We might have to swim for it. How deep is it? I didn't bring my life jacket.
I don't know, but if it's too shallow, we'll break our necks anyway.
Hang on to me.
Okay.
Wait. Just in case this is a suicide or they capture us and we never see each other again anymore, I just want to say thank you for marrying me. I'm glad I got to know you, Susie. I think you've still got lightning in you.
So, drinking games, what have we got, guys?
Alright, I'm going to go first, because I think mine are the most generic.
Sure.
Drink for injuries.
Drink for injuries, yes.
Any injury that happened to anybody.
Much misfortune. I mean, Bill Murray, every time he gets a black eye, I definitely had that.
Yeah,
they keep coming
Lucas
and going.
Hedges gets a few.
Poor Lucas Hedges, yes.
Sam gets struck by lightning at least twice.
Yes. Yeah, everyone gets... even Susie with her ears being pierced. Yeah, nobody gets out of this film unharmed, I don't think. Everyone gets at least one. You know.
No, there's also... We've not talked about that one kid who's just got an eye patch on.
Oh, yes, eye patch. Lazy eye. Poor lazy eye, yeah.
Who's defined by this one injury that they've got.
Poor kid. Yeah, which Edward Norton, this is the standard that he's set. Again, terrible leadership.
Yeah.
Do you want to do your first one?
Well, that brings me on to one of mine. Drink for poor childcare.
Drink for very poor childcare across the board. Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay, here's one. Drink for diegetic music, which is music that is played by something that's actually in the scene. I think most of the music in this film, it's a bit of a techie one, but like I think most of the music in this film, it's not like there's a soundtrack that's just playing from nowhere. It's like on the record player that Susie's brought along, you know. Or...
Here's the bugle getting played.
Exactly, yeah. So I really liked that. It was a nice little.
No, I didn't think of that.
It creates its own soundtrack in a way.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I love the little dance sequence to the French New Wave song, because it's this really slow, sultry kind of French song, and she's kind of doing an appropriate dance, I'd say. She's kind of just slowly like waving her arms around, and he's just like so not on the beat. He's just like frantically flailing his arms around. It really tickled me.
The beauties of growing up.
Yeah.
Drink 4 symmetrical shots.
Symmetrical shots, nice.
Standard Wes Anderson drinking game.
Yeah.
I had drink for bad ideas kids have. So
let's get married.
So let's get married. If you suck on a pebble, it will sort out being dehydrated.
Also, I've got water.
Bringing the cat.
Yeah.
Whilst running away with your boyfriend in the wilderness.
Bring all those books.
The ear piercing, everything about that. Having the motorcycle, everything around the bow and arrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many things in the campsite.
Yeah.
That poor dog really goes totally unmourned, doesn't he? Like Snoopy, it's really it's mentioned like, oh, by the way, your dog's dead, and he's like, oh, well, that's a shame. But like nobody, like, is it Edward Norton's dog? Is it just the camp dog? Like nobody seems to care.
It's true. We never know whose dog it actually is.
Yeah. Another just stupid line, not stupid, a clever line that I really enjoyed, but was when Susie and Sam find the dead dog, and she goes, "Was he a good dog?" And he goes, "Who can say?" Like that's just such an existential question. Who can really say he's a good or a bad dog? Like, who can say? But he didn't deserve to die.
That's Wes Anderson always finding a way to make things existential.
Like, even though his throwaway line of dialogue managed just to be a little bit weird and offbeat, which I love. Okay, I'll just do one more then. Drink 4 primary colours, or maybe specifically drink for the colour yellow, which I noticed was all over this movie. Mostly in the foster parents on the telephone call, their whole house is just yellow.
Yeah, like when I first noticed that, I was like, "What's going on here?" Well, is there a thing? Is every room going to be a different colour or something?
You never find out.
No, it's still yellow for no reason whatsoever.
If I ever buy a house, I might do that. I might have like a room that's just all one colour.
It might be quite intense.
Yeah, but fun. Like
you might find yourself going a little bit insane.
Yeah, probably.
And like your eyes might need to adjust when you walk into each room.
Yeah, it was like that. It was I think they had like a yellow lampshade, like a lamp or something.
You know, like when, well, you might not actually, but when you lie down in the sun.
Go on, man.
And you're there for like 10 minutes, and then you open your eyes afterwards, and everything looks a little bit green for whatever reason.
Yeah, that would be their lives. Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think the bits that are on the campsite are the most intense bits of this film.
Yeah,
because they're intense.
Oh. God! Right, podcast over. We're done here.
Finley.
All right, let's move on quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's. Well, you've driven us to drink with that one, so that's a good way to wrap up. Have you got any more, or is that the end of your drinking?
No, that's mine.
Okay, so that's probably a good point to wrap up the drinking games.
Those sons of bitches. They got him right through the neck. Was he a good dog? Who's to say? But he didn't deserve to die.
Okay, do you want to do your bit?
Your spiel.
Yeah, okay, I'll do my bitch spiel now. So, listeners, Finn is actually one of our loyal Patreon supporters.
Yes, thank you very much again. Cannot thank you enough for that.
At some point, he has gone to patreon.com/beyondtheboxset, and he has decided to give us a little bit of money every month. However much he feels we're worth. How much are we worth to you?
You're currently worth the £2, but in my defence, this is because I am currently trying to sort my freelance life out.
Don't need to defend yourself. I really appreciate it.
What I will say to any listeners out there who are thinking about it, because I was in the should I not do this? The thing that I think I've enjoyed most from being a Patreon member has been that when you become a Patreon member, you are effectively joining the family that is Beyond the Box Set. Not just the members within it, but John and Harry, who have been really amazing in inviting me into their home, given that I could have been a psychopath.
I don't live here.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest sort of selling point I can make is that it's in terms of sort of value for money, so to speak, which might be the sort of thought process that a lot of you are thinking about. it covers itself so many times over from the joy that you get out of being part of this collective and being part of this group and being part of this family. So please do give money to Beyond the Box.
Wow. You nailed that. Thank you.
Bloody hell, I don't really know what else to say now.
So I guess that the practicalities are that we get...
so you get access to our exclusive Facebook group,
Yes.
where you can chat to Finn a bit more directly if you wish to.
And us.
Along with me and John, yeah.
And all of the members, yeah.
You get a bonus show about weekly where me and John go to the cinema every week and then we review that film, whatever we see. There's always some good stuff happening on there.
Yeah.
Once a month we do a Patreon episode, such as today, where we pick a patron, such as Finn, who comes on, chooses a film for us.
You're more than welcome and encouraged to come to Leeds and join us if you would so wish, but if that's not practical for you or if you don't want to, you're also welcome to do it. We can Skype you. And if you don't necessarily want to be on the show, but there's a film you'd like us to talk about, just tell us what film, we'll do it on your behalf. That's fine too, whatever. But you get to pick a film for us to cover, essentially. So.
Yeah, and also once a month, every Patreon gets a 30-second advert slot on the main show.
Yes, which Finn is currently using to plug his fantastic podcast, Passport People, which we'll hear a little bit more about in a bit. In fact, let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
Give it a plug.
In a bit.
Why not? I mean, so I've already mentioned quite a bit earlier, but in case it's been cut from the earlier bits,
this is just to make you feel good. We're not actually including any of this.
Hey, I'm just saying I'm a podcaster myself. I am always, even when I'm in the midst of recording, desperately thinking, "Oh no, is this running too long?" So I can only imagine how you guys are feeling. But basically, the podcast is called Passport People. It's available on all good podcasting platforms and bad ones. Basically, I talk to people about the places that matter to them, which can be where they live, where they grew up, where their family are from. It's all sorts of different reasons that people pick places, which we go into on the podcast itself. There's an amazing range of stories. We hear a little bit about personal experiences people have had, stuff about the history of places, and you really get to see the different places in question through the eyes of the people who we interview. So we've finished season 1 about a month ago, so February. We have season 2 coming up, and of the ones that have already been recorded, we have Edinburgh, Scotland, Amsterdam, Bermuda. We've got a South African episode getting recorded quite soon. Wow. So and of course we're going to have John Harry on to talk all things Leeds.
Excellent.
Later today, which I'm really excited about. So yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about Leeds, I'm going to talk about Mid Wales.
Well, we'll see. Nothing to say about that.
That's what you think.
Yeah. It's a really interesting podcast. Definitely check it out. So that's Podcast People, available on all good podcasting platforms. Podcast People.
There's a lot of P's to deal with.
That's Passport People, available on all good podcasting platforms and the bad ones, as you said. So great. And yeah, all details of our Patreon is at patreon.com/Beyond the Box Set.
Yeah,
go there. Do it.
Who says / anymore?
So www.
.html.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm old.
You work in websites now, John.
I know.
Sort it out.
Sorry.
God. Anyway, okay, that's enough of that. So, should we sequels?
Yeah. Do you want me to get Finn? We normally have the guest in the middle. Yeah.
No, so I'm ready for my middle.
Would you rather be first or last, Harry?
I'll be last.
Okay.
I think I was first, last guest.
Fair enough. I will go first this time. Okay, cool. So my sequel is based on the fact that watching this film, it really struck me. Obviously, Wes Anderson has a very unique style. And so I found myself thinking about the other Wes Anderson films that I've seen. So I thought it made me think particularly of The Royal Tenenbaums, which we've done on a previous episode, which is another fantastic film. And obviously in that film, we see some flashbacks to the childhood of the 3 principal characters played by Gwyneth Paltrow, Ben Stiller, and Luke Wilson.
I forgot Ben Stiller was in that.
Yeah, so there's some flashbacks to their childhood, but not a whole lot is filled in. So I don't know if this entirely lines up chronologically, because I couldn't remember when Tenenbaums is set, if there is a specific time period set to it. But I was thinking, wouldn't it be interesting, since this movie is set in the 60s, if the Tenenbaums somehow met the cast of Moonrise Kingdom as children?
Oh no.
So my sequel,
I'm looking forward to what's going on with Bill Murray.
Yeah. Oh god, he's in both, isn't he? Okay, I had not considered that. He doesn't.
Although, no, I can defend this, because Bill Murray only comes into Royal Tenenbaums when the Tenenbaum children are all adults.
True, yeah.
So if you've said it as they meet when they're children, then actually Bill Murray doesn't need to come into this as the lover of Gwyneth Paltrow.
True, yeah. Maybe he just looks familiar to her later.
Well, let's get
maybe it's
daddy issues.
Maybe it plants some seeds. Yeah, we'll get to. Yeah, let's add to. There's definitely going to be a degree of you guys help me out with this, but essentially my thought is...
My favourite option is always to go with an evil twin or something
Evil
like
twin,
that.
evil twin. That would be a very Wes Anderson thing to do. Yeah.
Evil twin is just the best.
Yeah.
The secret evil twin.
If he was going to twin
separated at
anybody,
birth,
it'd be Bill
maybe.
Murray, yeah.
We can get into this. We can get into this. But the fundamental concept is that, so this is in the 60s. I'm setting this a few years, or maybe it's the early 70s. It's a few years. I was thinking also for casting purposes that Moonrise Kingdom came out in 2014, 12, when was it?
2012.
So, because the children from the two, Sam and Susie, the children from Moonrise Kingdom, I want to bring them back. So they are now in their early 20s.
They're 21.
21, yeah.
I
So
looked this up for the purposes of developing my own sequel.
Oh, good. So, okay. Well, I hope we're not at the same idea. But essentially, I was thinking I want to keep them in. So let's say it's set 9 years after the original, or 8, 9. I can't count. 8 years after the original to bring it up to speed.
Mhm.
So, again, I don't know if that works with the Tenenbaums' ages, but I'm just going to, wave up my hand over it and, just for the purposes of this story. So, the Tenenbaum, we're meeting the Tenenbaums as young children. I'm thinking this is before Margot loses the finger, so they're like, like preteens. They're all preteens. Like, do you remember that in Royal Tenenbaums?
Yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow loses a finger, so that hasn't happened yet.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Has he seen it?
I've seen all of them.
Yeah.
I've even seen Bottle Rocket, which is Wes Anderson on no budget, which
yes.
is really fun to go and see.
One for the list. So yeah, the Tenenbaums as young children, before all of the stuff's gone down with Margot's finger, before Angelica Houston and Gene Hackman get divorced, so very early on. And at this point, Ethelene, their mother, played by Angelica Houston, she's become concerned that her children, being kind of prodigies, in various ways, aren't mixing well with other children. So she forces them against their will. She sends them with the best interests at heart. She generally seems like a decent mum. She sends them to Camp Ivanhoe for reasons. Maybe she's just heard about it from a friend of a friend or whatever. So she ships them off to Camp Ivanhoe, very much against their wishes. I think Gene Hackman would be very much against this, would protest loudly, but she overrules him, and the children are sent reluctantly to Camp Ivanhoe. So, and when they get there, they encounter Sam, who has now grown up. He's in his early 20s, and he has now actually replaced Ed Norton, who is presumably in jail. Sam is now the camp leader. Sam's now the camp leader, which I think would be a good role for him, a very natural fit.
Mm-hmm.
And the three Tenenbaums arrive, and obviously they instantly detest this camp. This is so not their whole vibe, And I'm thinking it's kind of like a Wes Anderson take on the Addams Family Values. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
The second Addams Family film, where obviously Wednesday and Pugsley go to a camp and they're just so out of place. And I think Margot Tenenbaum does have a bit of the Wednesday Addams about her anyway. She's got the
definitely.
With the kind of the coal eyes and the just general deadpanness. So that's the vibe I'm thinking with this. Like, not quite as dark as Addams Family Values, but definitely in that territory. So they really do not like this. They are not camping people, obviously, and they, much like Sam did in the Moonrise Kingdom film, they make several attempts to escape the camp and get away. Unfortunately, as intelligent as they all are, that none of them have any practical outdoor skills at all. That's not the world they've grown up in. So all of their attempts to escape fail miserably. And I think that'd be fun to see them because they're so self-possessed in Tenenbaums in many ways, to see them out of their depth. I think that'd be a really fun twist on these characters. So I'm thinking their lack of practical skills is going to mean they're going to fail every time. So I think this could take up, much like Moonrise Kingdom, the first third of this movie could just be the Tenenbaums trying to escape from camp and always getting into terrible scrapes. Imagine those kind of children on this island. They could run into a bear maybe, or they could, they're not going to be able to pitch a tent. They're going to get ill. They're going to be they're going to run out of food.
I'm just imagining the Revenant now.
Yeah, maybe it goes super. Maybe it gets super intense. Or that's it. Maybe it escalates so quickly for them because they're so unprepared for this, and then inevitably Sam and the other scouts will find them and it'll be like, guys, you're fine. They get into far worse situations than they need to do. So that's going to be a good portion of this film. Obviously, they're not going to be terribly popular with the other scouts, much like Sam wasn't. Because they're so aloof and they're not really interested in being here, and they're quite elitist. So the other scouts don't like them. They're probably going to get bullied a little bit. But Sam, the scout leader, he's going to be really determined. He's going to see something in them, even though they're very different. He's going to remember his own time as being the shunned, the unpopular one, and he's really going to be determined to kind of crack them, win them round. He really sees something in them that reminds him of himself in some ways. So he really takes, not quite a shine to them, but they become his project basically. And so I think like the main meat of the film is going to be him trying to win them round to, you know, embracing this outdoor life and camp life with varying degrees of success. You know, I was thinking that Richie, the Luke Wilson character in Tenenbaums, he is a child tennis prodigy, so I think he's probably the most outdoorsy, or the most like primed to thrive in this. Of any of the three of them, he seems like he could probably do okay. Definitely. So I think he could maybe, under Sam's encouragement, set up like a tennis training court in the camp, and he starts teaching all the other kids how to play tennis, and that's how he ingratiates himself with them. And maybe initially he's far too authoritarian and like aggressive initially, and the kids would not like it, but eventually he learns to tamp that down and like work on their level, and eventually he kind of starts to enjoy himself, and the kids start enjoying the tennis, and so that's how he, you know, finds his way. I think Margot is obviously going to meet Susie, who I think Susie and Sam are definitely still married, maybe legally married now that they're actually of age, but I definitely wasn't going to split them.
It's not legal.
At 12 years old.
They signed a document.
I don't, yeah.
They do say, Jason Schwartzman does say, this isn't legally binding, but the ceremony does provide, you know, so like he made it as much of a thing as it was, but no, my understanding, it wasn't legally binding. Right.
But there was no way else. I don't know what you two have done, but I was not here to split those two kids up. I believe in that story. So
you'll see what I've done.
Okay, well, I've kept them together. They are still very much in love.
Can we get them to leave now?
Yeah, so I feel like she's obviously going to be somewhat present at the camp because her husband obviously works there. So she's going to bond very much with Margot because I feel like they're very much cut from the same cloth. And I think because she's now 21 and this is like obviously young Margot, I think Margot's probably going to be about 12 at this point. So I'm imagining that Margot will almost start to slightly hero worship her a little bit. She'll be like a big sister / mother figure. Maybe more of a big sister because she's only 21. So I'm imagining that because Margot in Royal Tenenbaums is like a child literary prodigy. She writes books from a young age. So I think she's already doing that. She's already a writer. And because Susie's a big avid reader, she is offering critique. So she reads Margot's like early writings. And because she's very unfiltered and not somebody who's going to, you know, she gives her very honest criticism, which Margot kind of bristles against initially, but actually takes on board and it improves her writing. So they have this relationship. I'm thinking there's going to be lots of fun, like inappropriate scenes of the two of them just sat chain smoking, even though she's 12, you know. Because Margot's a big secret smoker in the Royal Tenenbaums too.
So we're also saying that Susie hasn't gotten rid of any of the sort of like rage.
Maybe
like, rage against the world, us against.
I think it's still there. Well, I think maybe she's not as rage and resentful anymore, but I think she's certainly still got that deadpan quality, that kind of slightly outside. I think she's not changed as a person. She's still very much herself.
God, seeing a scene between her and Margot Tenenbaum,
yeah,
that would be very freaky.
It would a bit, yeah. But maybe this is where Margot picks up her smoking habit because Susie smokes.
Maybe that's her eyeshadow as well.
Yes, they teach each other. Yeah, she teaches her how to do makeup. So yeah, because she is really a mini Margot.
It's weird actually now that I think about it. I never put those two things together.
One thing I really liked actually about Moonrise Kingdom was that Susie, reading the behind the scenes stuff again, the girl who played Susie did her own makeup apparently.
Oh really?
Yeah, and I really think that's a really good idea because I did notice watching the film, I was like, oh, she went a little heavy on the eyeliner, the eyeshadow stuff, but then of course she's a kid, she would, like, you know, when you're a kid putting makeup on for the first time. So I thought it's a really, whereas a professional makeup artist might have made that just look very natural, but because she's got really heavy, I really like that. It told you a little bit about visually told you something about the character without like signposting it. So I was really pleased when I read that. Like, oh, of course she did. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, so I like the idea that she creates Margot in her own image. So yeah, she helps her to do. She teaches her how to do makeup. She introduces her to smoking, and the two just spend a lot of time sitting at the camp, chain smoking, reading books, and staring into the middle distance in binoculars. So yeah. I really like the idea of those two as friends. That was really my way into this sequel. And the other one is Richie, who is the character who will later be played by Ben Stiller. Not Richie. Chaz. Chaz is the Ben Stiller character.
Sure. Yes.
And Chaz in Tenenbaums, he is a child business prodigy and maths prodigy. So he's like on the investment circuit at the age of like 10 and whatever. And I think he has a nervous breakdown or something. Well, they all have nervous breakdowns in Tenenbaums. It's very much that thing. So I think he's going to be the hardest nut to crack because he is totally removed from everything, in this world. He's very much an indoor kid. But Sam's really going to work hard on kind of wearing him down. And I think that after Richie and Margot kind of ingratiate themselves into the camp and start to enjoy things, and they kind of relax. They stop trying to escape. They wouldn't admit they're having fun because it's not their vibe, but they are having fun. And so, but Chaz is still determined to get away by any means necessary. So he's continuing to try and escape, and at a certain point the other two just stop going with him. They're just like, you know what, what's the point? So Chaz makes another solo escape attempt, despite Sam's best efforts to win him round. Goes off on his own into the wilderness, much like Sam does in Moonrise Kingdom, so, lots of parallels there. And I think this is where he's going to get into some real trouble, because he's not equipped for this. So maybe this is where he gets attacked by a bear. I think something really bad has to... He's not going to die, but something really bad has to happen to him.
You can't kill Chaz.
No.
Wait, sorry, who are we talking about? Chaz now?
Chaz, the Ben Stiller
sorry, yeah.
as a child character from Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah.
He escapes on his own, but something bad has to happen that has some repercussions that I'll explain in a moment. But I was thinking maybe he runs into a bear and runs away.
Maybe he can't swim because he's never been taught, and he falls into one of the rivers.
Possibly he almost drowns, yeah. But something befalls him that's particularly bad, basically. And he does survive, and he's rescued, brought back to camp. Or, in fact, I'm going to change it a little bit. He nearly drowns, he gets into trouble in the wilderness, and he's rescued by Lucas Hedges.
Ooh.
Who's now all grown up, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Lucas Hedges is an adult as well now, but he still maintains a bitter rivalry with Sam. He's still very resentful of being stabbed and all that. Yeah, sure, understandably so. Yeah.
You make it sound like he's really held on to this for the past couple of years, but unnecessarily. But
yeah. God, let it go, man. A little. What's a little stabbing between friends?
Yeah.
Childhood hijinks. But yeah, he's another cat. Maybe he's leading a rival camp, but he's the one who finds Chaz, rescues him, finds out what's happened, and he then, because he's so bent on revenge, he then uses this information and teams up with social services, brings Tilda Swinton back in to try and get the camp shut down, because he basically posits that Sam is unfit to run a camp because this child nearly died, and it becomes a whole thing where him and social services are trying to basically get Sam fired and to shut down Camp Ivanhoe forever, basically, because it's just too many incidents have happened. Too many kids have been struck by lightning or fallen out of tree houses, or it's just, this has to stop. So this is the big dramatic moment where it looks like the camp is going to be closed down forever. The kids are very sad, but the Tenenbaums, this is where they kind of rally. And they realise that, especially because Margot and Richie have started to enjoy themselves, and maybe at this point Chaz has a change of heart as well. Maybe they convince him, whatever. But now the Tenenbaums rally and use their metropolitan, upper class, skills to litigate and to successfully defend the camp from social services, launch a countersuit or something. And draw on all their wealth and knowledge and money and stuff, and they manage to then actually save the camp from being closed down, and they rescue Sam's job, and and that's pretty much where it ends. But then it ends, I guess, with them leaving the camp at the end of the summer. Bittersweet, they say goodbye, and they figure out they've learnt a lot, and then they go back to their regular lives, their regular dysfunctional Tenenbaum lives, but they just have this little adventure that they never really talk about again, but it was a nice little moment in their childhood. So,
that's nice.
Yeah. So that was the title I gave for that was Moonrise Monarchy, because Royal Tenenbaums.
Nice, yeah.
That's clever.
Moonrise Monarchy.
Oh goodness, is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
So mine isn't a million miles.
Oh dear.
Off of that. No, don't worry. We haven't done the same thing.
Okay, cool.
But there are definitely bits in yours that I also had.
Okay, cool. That's fine.
Right. So I'll tell you where the film begins, but I'm going to pick up on the sort of world we're in from what happens at the end of Moonrise Kingdom.
Sure.
So Sam and Susie stay together through childhood because they're both living on the island. So they, they're just there. They're with each other. They, they hang out every now and again. They, they grow up together in many ways, and they are, each other's first proper relationship.
Have you done what I've done and aged it, moved it forward 8 years so that the actors are present day?
So
okay, cool.
This, as I'll get to, this film is completely set in 1973, which is
cool.
8 years after the original film.
Great. Oh, disco era.
Yeah, with 73. Yeah, 73. Although, again, disclaimer, it's still happening on the island.
Sure, so it's a timeless.
It's not it's not like everyone's wearing bell bottom.
It's not
trousers.
Saturday Night Fever meets Moonrise Kingdom now.
Oh, that would be fun.
That would be fantastic. Yeah. John Travolta rocks up with a massive.
Teaches Sam how to be groovy.
Yeah. John Travolta as a camp leader. That actually, I would be on board for that. But anyway, continue.
So anyway, the film the film sort of picks up at a sort of flashback point. So Sam and Susie have been together throughout their childhood, and Susie goes to New York to study English at NYU. That's the university I know.
Makes sense.
Sam, his world is the island. His world is, the scouts and everything that he's learned. So he decides that he's going to stay on the island and continue his rise up the scouting ladder. And he ends up getting a role with the American Scouts Association. Susie and Sam, keep in touch via letters. So in very much the same way as they did at the beginning of Moonrise Kingdom.
Sure.
They are, they're keeping in touch with each other, but again, as relationships have become more complicated as they get older, it gets increasingly harder for them to be able to maintain a long distance relationship that's happening over letters. Susie's having all these experiences, Sam's having all these experiences, and they're just, for reasons they're not quite clicking with each other. So they make a sort of mutual agreement, that they're not going to be in a relationship, but that they'll still really matter to each other.
Sure. Okay. You monster.
I know. But
greatest love story since Titanic, and you
hang on. I haven't. The film hasn't even really kicked off.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
This is just where we are at the beginning.
Okay, cool.
So the film properly kicks off. So that's all the sort of setting the scene.
Sure.
The film properly starts with Sam living on the island, working at Camp Ivanhoe as the scout leader, being supervised by Edward Norton into being able to run this.
But for
thing.
why? What's Edward Norton supervising? What's
Well,
he saying?
because-
Oh no, you're doing that wrong.
Well, as someone who is, working with young people and who is quite regularly told, oh, you want to lead something, you might as well, you let's supervise you and check that you can do it before we can. So this is effectively Sam's equivalent of that. We mainly trust you, we know you've got all the skills, but this is us just, ticking our boxes to make sure that, nothing happens. Again, times changing, post Edward Norton just, 8th grade math teacher just being like, oh, we need someone, you just go and do it. And Edward Norton, following the events of what happened on the flood night, he was seen as doing quite a good job, and so he's been able to keep his role, and he's just risen up from there. So his standing, his stock is still quite high in the scout world. And the film properly kicks off because Susie has returned to the island with Warren, who is a master's student in history at NYU. So that's where they've met, played by Timothy Chalamet.
Who else, of course?
Because he's in every single sequel that you guys pitch anyway.
Yeah.
Does you guys every single sequel that he pitched.
Does Susie have a college roommate, and can she be played by Saoirse Ronan? As a sassy Irish, English master student.
But also, I think...
Can they get ripped apart by bears?
We've not seen French Dispatch yet, because it's not yet out, but I think Timothy Chalamet is supposed to play quite a big part in that, so I think we are going to see him in more Wes Anderson films anyway. This also...
He does fit into that world, I think.
Yeah,
I won't disagree.
This isn't just keeping sort of the vague, idea of the world, this is also thinking, what would Wes Anderson realistically make?
Sure, yeah.
Supposedly.
Yes. He's probably not casting Zac Efron anytime soon, yeah.
Exactly. So
no, he casted Ben Stiller. I think that's quite an out there casting.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson will have known each other from other places, so it's kind of like getting your mate in to,
Yeah.
I can imagine with Ray Fiennes being in Grand Budapest Hotel that it was probably something quite similar with Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a different conversation. So Susie returns to the island with Warren. Warren is very classic urban city guy, very academic, doesn't really want to get his hands dirty, but he really likes Susie, and they've been together for a year or two now, and they really feel good about each other. And this is him going not only to meet the parents, but also to sort of go home, back to what Susie's childhood place was, get to grips with everything, get to hear all the stories about the forest, and just generally feel like he is understanding another part of Susie. And as part of this, Warren asks, because he's heard so much about Sam and the scout troop and the wilderness, he decides to join Sam's scout troop for the course of while he's there, just to learn all these different skills, learn about canoeing and camping and how to be able to do all that stuff, so that it's something that he can add to his reasons for, Susie to, like him and feel happy about him, and to make him a more well-rounded boyfriend, basically.
Now, are you imagining this character as being a likable character, or is he going to be a bit of a antagonist, a bit of a villain, a bit of a snob?
I mean, I think when I sort of pictured the film, the thing is, as audience members who will have seen the original, you're going in rooting.
You're primed for Sam and Susie, yeah.
So even though he's not specifically doing anything wrong or anything that's specifically mean, from the get-go, you there's already a sense that's let's get this guy out the picture, because you're still rooting for Sam and Susie.
Sure.
You still want them to find a way to be together, and this is seen as being the obstacle in that process.
Okay, sure.
So Warren joins the camp, and under Sam, who himself is under the supervision of Edward Norton, he is interacting with the camp and doing all these various different bits. Meanwhile, the narrator, Bill Balaban, from the first film, is also in this film.
Right.
Doing quite a lot of the same sort of role he did in the first film. Except this time, he's not talking about the Black Beacon Storm. He's talking about the Black Beacon legend.
Ooh.
He is talking about an early Native American legend about one of the neighbouring islands, very, very close to 3.25 tidal inlet, whatever it's called. And basically this legend, and we get different bits of it as the film goes on, it's made to look exactly like almost a mirror image of the story of Moonrise Kingdom, the original film. So it's the Black Beak legend was of two Native American kids who ran off together to see the island because they didn't feel that they were being listened to. I'm not phrasing it well, but it's scripted in a very Wes Anderson way, where it's giving you enough information to go, this is, the Black Beacon legend. And it's
so it's like history is repeating itself.
Yeah, it's sounding eerily like what happened in the first film. So not only as an audience member are you rooting for Sam and Susie, but you're being further buoyed on by this legend, this Native American legend being told, and there being this sense of, hang on, they were meant to be together. they were.
It's destiny.
Yeah, exactly. It's destiny. It's meant to be. Surely this is what's got to happen. Warren is trying to fit in with the scouting troop, but it's really not working. He's kind of made, similarly to yours, he's kind of made fun of for, being urban and not wanting to get his hands dirty. He's made fun of for the fact that he's older, and therefore everything he does looks kind of silly. He ties knots, and he'll tie up the canoe to something and the canoe will just float off, that sort of thing. And it'll fall perfectly into that Wes Anderson brand of, this is sad, but we can also make this seem really funny. Susie is meanwhile trying to write a book at the family home. That's one of the things she's decided to do. She's like, I want to write a novel. But she is being persistently interrupted by her parents, who
they're still together?
Who are still together.
Oh my god.
They've now retired from lawyering, so they're much more relaxed.
Oh good,
They have way more time to be at the house.
Oh, so they've worked on their marriage and mended it, and they're in a better place.
They stuck together. They were very much, they were going through a different patch, but they did a difficult patch.
I mean, poor Bruce Willis, but sure.
I mean, they're still not, they've got that old couple thing going of, they're not as in love as when they were sort of young and when they first met, but, they have a fondness for each other that we don't necessarily see in the original film.
Fair enough, sure, okay.
But they are consistently interrupting Susie in her attempts to write this book with their disapproving opinions of Warren.
Good.
As all parents kind of are with, your first series, like, oh, they're not good enough.
Have they come around now where they prefer Sam, even though they don't like him in the first movie? Or is
they kind of, the thing with Sam is they kind of know Sam.
He's a known quantity, yeah.
Well, yeah, after the events of the first film, Sam became more of a regular fixture in the house. Yeah. He would be at dinner more often. There would be more interaction between Sam and the family, so that even if the family weren't necessarily keen on the fact that, he was around doing things with Susie, there was at very least a sense that, okay, we can't just completely shut the door on this. We have to let something in, and they've kind of become used to it.
Yeah.
And Warren, in many ways, is the polar opposite of that. So the idea that something is going to come in and completely throw their perspectives on what they imagined Susie's boyfriend is being is really unsettling the parents. And they also, for very much the same reasons that Warren is also thinking at the same time, he doesn't get the island. He's very classic city academic.
So he rubs them the wrong way.
Exactly, and they're very sure that Susie's going to get quite bored of it, and that Susie's losing touch with her roots and who she was, and they are also sort of like, well, why don't you just talk to Sam, sort of thing. But this is the other thing to note. I've intentionally not had those two meet in a scene yet.
Yeah, Sam and Warren.
No, Sam and Susie.
Sam and Susie.
I very specifically kept them apart.
Right. Okay.
For this bit of the film, and you'll see why as we go on.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Captain Sharp, who's also in this film, is battling cancer.
Was that Bruce Willis?
This is Bruce Willis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Battling cancer. Oh.
Yeah, battling cancer. So difficult stuff.
So he's lost all his great hair.
Maybe I wrote that plotline off the base that it kind of looked like he was going that way anyway. I mean, he does look very ill for a lot of this film.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's at the hospital in St. Jack, battling cancer, and Sam is continuing to care for and take care of him. And Sam's a model professional in his job. So even though there's clearly a lot of feelings coming up with Susie's return to the island and her boyfriend coming into his troop and being an idiot, he's not really saying anything until these moments, because he knows that, aside from the fact that Captain Sharp is this sort of father figure, it's also a sense of, I feel like we can talk about this stuff, and I feel like you understand, and I feel like we can be honest about this. And this is the only point at which we understand that, Sam wants to sort of be there for Susie, but it's very difficult because there is a lot of stuff there, and there's always a connection to your first love where even if things go difficult and you understand, this isn't going to work, it's still there, and it's still complicated.
So Bruce Willis is the one character that Sam can be vulnerable with, because he's not a very vulnerable character in the original.
And that's also juxtaposed with the fact that he's very Bruce Willis is very sick. We get to understand a lot of the sort of complicated stuff that's going through Sam's head that we don't really get to see when he's out in the camp.
Sure.
Eventually, after all this sort of, Warren just not getting it, Warren snaps.
Right.
And he gets super frustrated, and firstly he vents his anger at Sam, but then he vents his anger at Susie as well.
So he wants to leave the island. He
just feels like he doesn't get it. It is not his thing. He felt like he needed to do this for her, but he just doesn't get it, and maybe they're just two very different people, and it's not made to work, and he just wants to go back to New York and have his, normal New York life exactly as he, imagined it and grew up in it and had that experience. And he leaves and goes back to St. Jack to sort of stay in a sort of small bed and breakfast type place until he eventually goes back to New York.
Right.
This is where Sam and Susie have their one scene together.
Right, okay.
Which...
I feel this is very built up.
It is very built up, and it's going to happen on the bench where Susie's mother and Captain Sharp parted ways. So there's sort of dramaturgical thing going on, and the place where, his dad and her mum, failing to make it work all that time ago are now meeting. And they talk everything through, and Sam gets the opportunity, because remember, this is the first proper conversation that they've actually had since they decided they weren't going to have a proper relationship.
So did they stop right into each other? Did they take a total break?
They did. They were just like, you know what, I think this is for the best, and I think you need to.
We need space.
You need to be able to go live your life, and I need to be able, which I think is very realistic of relationships in general. That one of the things that you don't realize when you're young and getting into these things is that, you pretty much always have time to have your own space.
Yeah.
Whereas when you become sort of 19, 20 and you begin to get into serious relationships, it can be quite difficult to find the line between where is me and where is this person who I'm in a relationship with. And that's something that they realize quite quickly after they both go to being on their own places. And particularly when you've lived just down the road from each other for 6-7 years, when suddenly that falls apart, it can be quite violent. And Sam never had the opportunity to properly express his feelings about this, because it was harder on him than it was for Susie, who, you know, was in New York, had a lot of stuff going on,
Sure.
could throw herself into her studies and all these different things.
It's like she's moved on and he's left behind at the same place.
Sam pretty much, he was on this island, so he pretty much had her and Captain Sharp, his dad, and now we're at a situation where it's looking like he's going to lose both of these things, and it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Susie's feeling a lot of pressure to be feeling feelings for this thing, for, you know, this person who she cared very much about a long time ago, but who she's also kind of come to acknowledge wants different things. And at the same time that Sam's sort of saying, I don't understand why you had to leave, Susie's kind of saying, well, why did you have to stay?
Yeah.
You know, you could have come to New York. You could have found a way to make it work. And they're both expressing that anger and frustration that they haven't had the opportunity to do so. That's kind of built up and built up and built up.
I feel like this is the Oscar clip scene.
It is. Well, it's kind of, if it's not giving too much away.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, so presuming a Moonrise Kingdom sequel would get Oscar buzz.
I think, yeah.
But anyway,
this is the Wes Anderson film that wins Best Picture. We finally got it.
Yes, let's do it. But anyway, so Sam and Susie, they get all their rage out, and they kind of get to the point where it looks like the conversation is turning towards something positive. At which point we cut to Susie putting a letter in the letterbox, very similarly to how she does in Moonrise Kingdom, and it's addressed to the bed and breakfast that she knows Warren is staying at.
Right.
And similarly to Moonrise Kingdom, it says, you know, get on this ferry, walk this number of meters due east. You know, similarly to the way that Sam wrote the instructions to Susie in the original film. And she basically leads him back along the Chickchaw trail to Moonrise Kingdom.
She takes Warren. That's her in Sam's place.
Yeah.
I reject this.
But you know, they go. You'll see why.
Okay, no, I'm only joking.
They go back along that same route, basically.
Okay.
You know, with her leading, because he's felt all this time like he has to be this, you know, macho guy who needs to be able to know all this wilderness stuff. And this is her saying, actually, it's okay. I know how to do all of this.
I see.
And it's perfect.
Oh, I
you know.
see. So she's now showing that she.
So she's effectively being Sam.
Okay.
You know, Sam, and he, you know, and allowing him to be slightly more vulnerable under the circumstances and the fact that he doesn't know as much.
No.
They get to Moonrise Kingdom / Mile Tidal Inlet, and they take the old canoe that they had and were using in the original film, and they paddle out to the neighbouring island, one of the islands in Black Beacon Sound, where they find their way to the spring that's at the heart of this legend. So again, I haven't entirely written the legend, but it's got something along the lines of, you know, the two young people came to this stream and they drank from it and they found eternal love or something like that. Something along those lines.
So does it turn out that Warren is actually the right person for her at this time in her life? Is that what you're building to?
So what it's building to is Susie now tells Warren the story of the legend.
Right,
so
okay.
we as the audience know the legend. Warren has no idea of this.
Sure,
and this fascinates Warren because Warren's a history person.
Sure,
so
okay.
This story is really interesting, and he also notes very quickly the part where this sounds exactly like the story with Sam.
Right, okay.
And what Susie says at the end of telling this story is she's like, and I know that that's the legend, but that's not what I want. You know, you are what I want, and this life that we have is what I want. And I'm sorry if, you know, for some reason you felt like you needed to be somebody else in order to fit into that. At which point she proposes to him.
Oh, okay.
And the end of the story, even though it's not entirely given away that Sam told Susie about this legend, but it's kind of inferred.
So like he's let her go.
He's let her go. You know, they've had this conversation, they've had it all out, and even though it's really difficult for both of them, they also acknowledge they're two people who want two very different things, and that that's okay.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they have to hate each other. And they can, you know, continue to be friends and continue to be close, but it means that when it comes to love and relationships and, you know, being together, that it's slightly more complicated than that. And the final scene, again, it's very much in the vein of the final scene of Moonrise Kingdom. Warren and Susie are about to head on the ferry back to St. Jack in order to head back to New York.
Mhm.
And there's a look very similar to the look that Susie and Sam give each other at the end of Moonrise Kingdom, between Sam, who's waiting on the pier, and Susie, who by this point has gotten on the
so
ferry.
maybe a little bit of a hand kiss or something. Oh,
exactly.
That's lovely.
And that was Moonrise Kingdom Beyond the Chickchaw.
Oh, that was lovely. I like the almost beyond the box set thing. There
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
No, that was I think that's like a sequel that could genuinely happen, and it's like very emotionally wise. I love that.
And that's the other thing. The other thing that we get is that eventually we learn that the book that Susie was writing was also called Beyond the Chickchaw.
Oh, so she's writing her own story.
Yeah, so similarly to how at the end we get the reveal the beach was called Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, that's nice.
We get the reveal that at the end the book that she was writing, which could have been on the legend or it could have been something else, was called Beyond the Chickchaw Trail.
You should pitch that to Wes Anderson. I mean, that's a genuinely like really good. You know what that reminded me of a little bit actually is. I can imagine it almost being like the Before Sunrise trilogy. Have you seen those movies? You know how it's like this is I don't know if you've seen them, Harry.
They're really good.
They're beautiful films. It's about a couple who meet when they're like backpacking in like Europe, and they have like a one night together and they fall in love, and then at the end of the film they don't stay together, the original film, but then there's another film 7 years later where they meet again, and then they get together properly, and then the third film they film them like 7 years apart, and the third film it's them at the end after they've been married for 7 years and their relationship's breaking down a little bit. And I could well imagine like every 7 years or so, or how much time you might want to give it, just checking back in with Susie and Sam and seeing where they're at in their lives. That could be like a really nice little franchise. So,
yeah. The thing is, as I say, I've been watching this film ever since I was 15, quite regularly. And the thing is, if you'd asked me to think of a sequel when I was 15, I would have said they stay together and it's a beautiful love story and it's great. But I think looking at it when I'm 22 and looking at my own experiences, there are people who I have been in love with and cared about a lot, and really, my heart is bled for not being able to be with them, but it just hasn't worked from a practical perspective, from a what we want in a relationship perspective,
and because you grow as well.
Well, exactly, and you develop, and the things you want mature. And I feel like with a love story like Moonrise Kingdom, that's something with a sequel that you also kind of have to take into account, and you also have to consider, and that it's okay. And for example, in my own romantic development, I'm currently with somebody, hi Melanie, who again, we get each other and we're on the same page as each other and we want the same things. And so even if you don't fall quite as hard as you do the first time, because the first time is the first time, that doesn't mean that you don't find something that's even more beautiful and even more special later in life.
Oh, what a lovely sentiment.
Good image.
Yeah.
Well, leave that on.
Okay, well, not sure if I can top that. But,
that was a mic drop from Finn.
But I will do my best. Okay. So anyway, this one is called Hunt for Moonrise Kingdom.
Hunt for Moonrise Kingdom, right?
Yeah,
okay.
And it is directed by both Wes Anderson and Taika Waititi.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Hunt for Moonrise Kingdom serves as a sequel to both Moonrise Kingdom and Hunt for the Wilder People.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you seen that film?
I've not, but I will very quickly pick up on what's going on, I'm sure.
Okay.
It's a good film. It's definitely got similarities to
You
this.
have seen this film. It is on my shortlist for 2 Geeks, 2 Movies. They are very similar movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they are both like heights of those directors' styles.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're very different, but one's a very Wes Anderson film, one's a very Taika Waititi film.
Yeah.
2 directors I think actually go hand in hand.
Definitely.
Quite
I watched Jojo Rabbit and definitely thought this is very much out of the Wes Anderson playbook.
Yeah. Hunt for the Wilder People, like basic plot. It's a kid getting lost in the wilderness.
Okay.
So it's very similar stuff.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. So anyway, we start in New Zealand with Ricky and Heck, which Ricky is the main character in Hunt for the Wilder People, and
the kid,
yeah, and Heck is Sam Neill.
Yes.
He's in it.
Yeah, he plays like the Bruce Willis role of the father figure, not the father, but the father figure. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Quick plot summary for that one: the two of them, they just live in the woods. They don't really want to live in civilization anymore. They just go and live in the woods. But social services are after him because he's an orphan who shouldn't be just.
Yeah, Sam Neill is his foster father in Hunt for the Wilder People, isn't he? Yes. So it's literally the same. Like in many ways, it is very similar. Yeah.
This is freaking me out. I need to go watch this movie.
If you like Taika Waititi, I think you'll
It's
really
a
like
very, very good film. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we start in New Zealand with Ricky and Heck. They're still living in the bush together. That's the wilderness.
Just translating your Australian slang there. The bush, yeah.
New Zealand, John.
New Zealand. What do they call it? The bush, though?
Well, that's what they did in the film, yes.
Okay, then they do. Fine, okay.
But don't...
Okay, I'm sorry. You're
don't
right.
get New Zealand and Australia mixed
Sorry,
up.
you're
They'll
right.
come for you.
Our New Zealand,
they will get on a 24-hour
Our New Zealand
flight.
fans will desert us in their droves, yeah.
For whatever reason, they are still running from social services.
Okay.
But they're rushing about more than normal, and in doing so, Heck slips on something and falls down a ravine.
Oh, no.
He lands on a stick, which impales him in the stomach.
Oh, my God. So Sam Neill's dead?
It's a bit of a dark start, yeah.
Christ. Blimey, okay.
But to be fair, I think one of the main differences between Wes Anderson and Taika Waititi is that Taika Waititi is definitely not afraid to shy away from things that might be considered gory. So
yeah,
I could see that going.
Yeah. So it's enough that he is going to die, but he's still alive, like for now, for a few minutes or something. He's got enough to give some parting words.
Sure. In the classic movie tradition.
Yeah, of course.
He'll die when he's finished his speech.
Yeah.
And not a moment
And so I'm not going to try a New Zealand accent. I would love it if I could do anything near it, but...
Okay, fine.
No.
I could give it a go if you liked.
Sorry. All right. Don't scroll. Just read that top paragraph.
This country's against you, Ricky. It'll never accept you for who you are. You should leave and find somewhere better.
Very good.
When the little cockney in the end there. I apologise to all New Zealanders. I do really like accents.
Wow, we're Meryl Streep here.
Yeah. So anyway, Heck dies, and Ricky buries him and sets off in a homemade canoe and sails off into the sunset.
Oh,
Does he sail from New Zealand to America?
He just sails off into the sunset.
Blimey, okay, sure. I mean, that would be a Wes Anderson-y touch if you could, just sure, why not? Yeah.
This
Travel by map.
Yeah, exactly. Travel by map.
I mean, also I looked up the location. It's the other side of US. It's the east coast of the US,
Sure.
northeast coast. So it's not just like going from Australia across the Pacific, which is big enough anyway. That's half the world.
Sure.
It's going through the Panama Canal.
He would need to go all the way around South America first.
Can we do this via a montage of him just like paddling his canoe through all these different...
Well, basically, I've skipped over that bit.
Okay, sure, yeah.
That's a whole story.
That is it. That's a film in itself, yes.
So this is basically the intro, and then this is where you'd get the credits, Hunt for Moonrise Kingdom.
Sure. I'm still imagining that canoe ride. I'm sorry. Carry on.
So,
what is he eating?
I know. Does he arrive like super emaciated? Because he's quite a chubby kid in the original.
Anyway, come on.
I'm sorry.
Okay. You started strong though.
I blame John.
5 years later, we pick up with Sam and Susie.
Okay.
So they're both about 20 now, whatever.
Okay.
And they aren't together as a couple, but they're both just friends.
Sure. Okay.
Still got very close friends and single. There's nobody else going on in their lives. Mm-hmm. They're essentially a couple, but not really.
I see. They're platonic besties. Yeah, it's evolved into that. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Every now and then, when life gets hard for them with whatever it is that they're doing, they go down to the cove, they pitch a tent and just have a weekend with each other.
Oh, okay. It's nice.
There are hints of romance, but nothing's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
On one of these days, they're pitching up their tent, they notice something out at sea.
Oh my god, is it the boat on the horizon?
This has gone very horror very quickly.
They can't quite make out what it is. And as it drifts closer, they see that it's a raft made of latched together logs.
Oh my god.
So,
jeez, oh god.
Sam and Susie, they swim out to go and bring it to shore. And as they get closer to it, they can see that there's a fat guy on it, passed out and holding a volleyball with a face.
Oh my god! He's not even lost any weight, despite the fact that he's been like stranded on a raft for 5 years.
I mean, one thing I noticed in Hunt for the Wilder People is that it takes place over like 2 years, and he's living off the forest. He maintains that weight.
That's true.
And so I thought, like,
sure.
Wait, this wasn't even a canoe. This was a raft out of logs.
Yeah.
Did I just missed that? No. Oh god.
Oh no, we skipped it. It's been 5 years.
So he's been through several boats, I'd imagine.
This poor child.
Yeah. So
my health and safety is going wild.
There's a lot that might have gone on in the 5 years when he set off on a canoe.
But it's I keep saying it. I think it is classic Wes Anderson to have like this whole backstory that they just don't address. It's like, well, there's all this stuff in the past, like Margot's backstory in the Royal Tenenbaums. It's hinted at but never really explained. So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
I apologise. Go on.
No. I'm just saying, like, this it tracks.
Anyway, when they get to shore, Sam feels his neck for a pulse. He's alive. What should we do? And Susie says, get him some water. So they get him a drink and they pour a little down his throat. He immediately coughs and wakes up. He opens his eyes and looks at Sam and Susie leaning over him. I'm imagining a very Wes Anderson sort of looking up shot. There's imagery going on and all sorts. He takes a second and then he screams, looks around for his volleyball, shouts Zogga at it, grabs it and crouches down defensively.
Is Zogga his Wilson, essentially?
Yeah.
Where did Zogga come from?
I made it up.
Just a random word. It's not a New Zealand slang word or anything, no? Zogga, okay.
No.
Random.
To be honest, I was trying to look for a New Zealand name that would work really well.
Yeah.
I looked through the cast at Hunt for the Wilder People. There's somebody called Zog.
Oh, okay, fine.
There it is.
Fine, okay.
Zog.
Sure. Okay.
You're right there, Finn.
Again, New Zealanders, please. Right?
Yeah. Just forgive us, yeah.
Don't worry, we're friendly. My name is Susie. His name's Sam. What's yours? Ricky. Who are you? Where am I?
I love it when you write scripts for your sequels. It's brilliant.
Like Susie said, we're Sam and Susie, and you're in New Penzance, a small island in Massachusetts. I'm in America? Yes, why? Where are you from? I'm a Kiwi.
Oh no, now you've gone to try the New Zealand accent.
Yeah, it's
going for it.
It's creeping in, yeah.
It's creeping, isn't it? They both give blank stares. I'm from New Zealand? So Ricky goes back to the boat. Come on, Zogga, let's go somewhere close at home. And so they stop him, convince him to stay, and they say there's a town nearby that he can stay at and get food. He says he preferred to camp. He doesn't like civilization. He likes to live in the bush.
Has he become a bit of a crazy castaway figure? Okay, sure.
Yeah. And so they agree to stay in the bay and camp there with him.
Okay.
That's what I've got so far. Where are we going with this?
Okay, so you've got a premise.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a full Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway kind of moment. He's
insane. He's got his volleyball called Zogga, who, by the way, at some point in this, I would like to be played by Taika Waititi.
Sure, he's the volleyball. Okay, like is it his face like CGI'd onto the ball? Or?
Oh, at times, yeah.
Okay, I like that. That's good.
So freaky.
That's good. Okay. Well, I think this is really good because I think that Sam and Susie, well, Sam in particular, is in the original film is so practically minded, and he's very he likes to take things on. So the idea of him and Susie having to like deprogram someone who's like this wild man who's like been through this traumatic experience who is completely outside of civilization, the kind of way that they would deprogram him and like get him back into civilization, but very much their version of civilization, not like actual it's not like he's landed in New York, he's landed in what is in itself quite a self-contained and slightly odd community. So yeah, the act of deprogramming somebody but also inducting them into this strange world of scout. I'm guessing he's going to join the scouts. That's how he's going to bring it. Do you
think he would be the best scout?
Well, I think it would be a comfortable middle ground for him because he's not ready to go back into like civilization being like domesticity. He likes to be outdoors. So this actually could work really well for him. It's like, okay, well, don't sail off again into you might die. Come to the scout camp and you can still live outdoors, but you can still be with people and you can reintegrate. And I think it'd be really fun to see all the scout kids. Again, we can get into the irresponsible scout leadership of it all. All those scout kids, obviously it's a new generation now, it's been 5 years, interacting with this crazed wild man who's like suddenly become like an adult scout in their midst. Just getting them into all sorts of additional scrapes. So, like, he's definitely up that treehouse,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's definitely stuff you could do there. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, if it's been 5 years, where are the authorities now? So, if they like acknowledge that he went off in a raft into the middle of nowhere, and then no one heard from him, so they just presume he's dead.
Well, yeah. So I would say that he's presumed dead.
Okay.
But then when he arrives at this island and he joins the scout camp, maybe he actually progresses to scout leader.
Yeah, maybe he really thrives in this community. Yeah.
Because he lived in the New Zealand forest or whatever for like a number of years and survived in that very well. So he's probably learnt loads. And now he's just survived on a boat for about 5 years. Or on a desert island or something, we don't know. But yeah, he's picked up some skills, that's for certain. So yeah, he can definitely be the leader of that. I'd say that when he does become that, it becomes a bit more of a story that gets into news.
Right.
Just like, oh, this guy Ricky, he just showed up on a beach one day and he just came this.
Okay.
And so then I would like that to become a bit more. Well, if it becomes a news story, then that could attract New Zealand's version of social services.
Oh, I see.
Which, of course, is actually a character in Home for the Wilder People. Not called Social Services.
No, okay,
Yeah.
So again, lots of crossovers.
And so then I'd like the two social services to maybe team up.
Okay, so I think what might be fun is similar to my one, where if you want to bring Lucas Hedges back in, maybe he's now a journalist working for the main, probably the only newspaper on this tiny island, and maybe again he's still got his resentments against Sam, but also I'm imagining it's quite a slow news island, like maybe he never gets a story, so maybe he becomes obsessed with this story, like this wild man's landed on a raft and now he like pursues it and publicizes it and much against what's his name again?
Ricky,
much against Ricky's wishes and much against Sam and Susie's wishes, he really publicises the story and attracts the attention of the New Zealand media, and it becomes like it brings the global media, because man sails for 5 years. That's a great story. The eyes of the world suddenly land on this very enclosed. It's almost like a little bit meta, like writing outside of the Wes Anderson thing, where all of his films are very self-contained. These people who like live outside the real world. Suddenly the real world invades, and there's this whole media story about this, and all he wants to do is like live quietly and be a scout leader, and all this like international attention freaks him out. That could be really good.
No, I would really like that. And I could see it that the end of the film happens with the three of them just sailing away off the island.
They decide to find a new home.
Maybe Ricky's like, I know a place.
And
it's just like it's an island in the middle of the ocean.
The three of them sail off for a new adventure. That could work.
I like the idea that New Zealand social services figure out where he is very quickly, but that about half the film are just silly bureaucratic arguments with American social services as to whose responsibility the kid is, until they actually get to actually making it to New Penzance.
That could be really good. Definitely get some good phone conversations with Tilda.
Because to be honest, those two characters. Well, those two actors would be really great on screen together.
I could imagine that very well.
There'd be some proper good arguments.
Okay, I think we've got something there.
So Hunt for Moonrise Kingdom. Directed by both Taika Waititi and Wes Anderson. See, what? I would like to see director collaborations like that
more often. It's not common, is it?
I can't really think of any examples.
Often you'll have a director and a producer. Like it'll be directed by X, and like how Joker was directed by Todd Phillips but produced by Martin Scorsese. Like so you'll have like a two-hander kind of thing.
Was it produced by him?
Yeah, it was. Despite the fact he moaned about Marvel films, but but yes, he did. I don't know, not Marvel, but
it's not good down that road.
I've learned to let it go.
But yes, so that happens. But you're right, like actual directorial. Apart from like ones that always direct together, like the Coen brothers, the Russo brothers,
siblings, quite often.
But you never, it's very rare to see two directors just co-direct a film. AI, Steven Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick. That was because he died, though. It wasn't like they were doing it together. But Kubrick died and Spielberg took over.
What about Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino?
Yeah, that's a good one. But isn't it more that they did two separate films and put them together? They didn't do like
I think that's right.
I think part of the
they collaborate a bit, but I'm not sure if they both been a director of a single film.
I think part of the problem is, certainly speaking from a theatre perspective, as a director, you want full creative control over what you do. So if you're at all an established director and you can prove at all that what you're doing is vaguely credible, the likelihood that you would ever cede that power, especially with people like Taika Waititi and Wes Anderson, where they have such specific creative visions. I'd like to see it.
I feel like they could go hand in hand, though, and they don't clash. It's not like picturing Wes Anderson with Tarantino.
No, that's true. No, I'm just explaining why I don't think it happens as much as it probably could.
Okay, so I guess those are our sequel pictures. Should we move on to listener submissions?
Yeah, let's.
Always fun. So, have
you got any? Excited for these for a long time.
I've got some good ones. I don't know about Harry, but
all right, I've got a few here. Now, as always, there are a few that are just opinions.
Sure, yeah.
Just people's reviews, which is always fair. So, first up, we have the most difficult name in the world.
Okay. Go on, do your best.
I'll give it a go with one of my accents.
Yeah, you know what? If you could,
let's see what it is.
That comment at the bottom there.
The comment at the bottom. Right, I am going with Te Wairangi Ratana.
There we go.
You make it sound very good. Okay. Well,
I've lived in Indonesia. You get used to saying complicated names.
Well, he, she, or they have said. I've said Sunset Palace.
Sunset Palace, nice.
Lovely.
That's that one out of the way.
See how many other people go for that.
Yeah.
Sean
Oh my god.
Oh, here we go again. Sean Broussard.
The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Oh, that's the other. That's another Wes Anderson movie. Is that all his pitch? Just that they be
Wait,
the
is
same?
that literally the name of the
That's
film?
literally the name of the movie.
But it doesn't even work from a timeline perspective.
Well, the same person has said,
Okay.
after in another comment, Wes Anderson's work is, apart from adaptations and commercials, all driving at the same core themes in a way that makes sequelizing, prequelizing wholly unnecessary.
Wow.
Cheers, man.
What a bird. Fine.
These are people from different walks of life dealing with the same problems of love and rejection, self-worth and ego, the denial, then acceptance of grief. They are all retellings and refinements of his view on a human struggle.
This guy sounds like a blast.
This isn't true for all, or even most, writer-directors, but he's 100% doing his thing thematically in a way that gets overlooked due to him doing his thing 110% visually.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also said, still looking forward to the best pun-based comments, though.
Okay, well, fair enough.
He's got to, give his 2 cents on the
You,
matter, but
me,
also enjoy the
outside,
post.
later.
I feel like he's like one of those guys who goes to like conventions and goes, "This isn't really as much a question as a comment."
We all know that.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Wow. Listeners, if you'd like to submit ideas, we may roast you just like this. Okay, next one up, I could read this name. Fraser Robert Scott says Moonset Kingdom.
What?
Moonset Kingdom.
Moonset Kingdom.
I thought you said something else for a second there.
Mum's Net Kingdom.
No, something else.
Oh, really? Okay.
We'll talk later.
Okay, well, draw a veil over that for now. Does the moon set? I've never heard that phrase, moon set. I guess it must. It rises and it sets. So,
yeah.
Okay, fine. I've never heard the phrase moon set.
What's wrong with
as
you?
one word. Like, you never say, "Oh, what a lovely moon set." You know.
But have you ever heard, "Oh, what a lovely moonrise"?
Yeah. People say that sometimes. I don't know. Carry on. Who cares?
You're weird. Okay, last one I've got here. It's just a little review. Gonzalo Rodriguez says, of all of Wes Anderson's movies, I feel like this one doesn't get enough recognition. It's very cute.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. I tell everyone this.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
good. Okay,
I
I have some
agree.
as well. Yeah, very good. Matthew Brown said Sunset Fiefdom. We've got a lot of puns on the names, obviously.
Great.
Stuart Gibbs said Moonrise Kingdom 2, Moonfall. Sure. Robert Hamilton said Moonrise Kingdom, The Rising Tides of Fear.
That's the horror remake.
Yeah, that's the horror remake. Ryan Klima had the same thought process as me because he said before Moonrise. So, before sunset, before Moonrise.
Ah,
yeah,
there
yeah.
you go.
Yeah. Drew Mancini did the classic 2 Moonrise, 2 Kingdom.
Nice.
Moonrise Kingdom 2, Electric
Yeah.
Boogaloo.
Yeah.
Gone beyond that.
Oh, Ryan Klima had a second one. He also said Moonrise Kingdom 2, The Last Boy Scout, starring Bruce Willis.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Brian Hunt said, just a remake of Mad Max Fury Road, but with these kids.
Oh, how did that work?
Connor Crehan said Moonrise Constitutional Monarchy, so similar to my title, but yeah. And finally, my personal favourites, Mike Sains said Moonrise Kingdom 2, Battle Royale.
Nice.
Dark.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for those sequel ideas. We ask for your listener submissions every week, a few days before we record, by putting posts out on Facebook and Twitter, where you can post your ideas. So make sure you like and follow our pages if you don't want to miss out. To listen to more episodes of Beyond the Box Set, you can subscribe and browse our back catalogue on any podcasting platform, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and many others. And don't forget, if you have the time, please do leave a 5-star review, or a 4-star or a 3-star review. Just leave a review.
5 stars are preferred.
5 stars preferred.
And they deserve it, lads. Come on.
Yeah, thank you, we do. So yes, please do. It really helps us out in terms of visibility, getting up the old iTunes rankings. So, and just recommend us to a friend, just tell the world. Mm-hmm. We're also available on Patreon, which is exclusively for the kind of people who will definitely leave us a 5-star review or higher, if they could, such as Finn. And you can find all those links in the description below or at beyondtheboxset.com. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Finn, once again for coming on and joining us on this episode.
Pleasure coming down to glorious old Leeds.
Yeah, and for bringing a fabulous movie that was a great fun to discuss.
Yeah, and so before I reveal what next week's film is going to be, do you want to just plug yourself a little bit.
Okay.
One last time.
Right,
Where
I'll go
people
really
find you.
quickly. I run a company in Edinburgh called Island Life Productions. We work with emerging artists and members of the public to create high quality art that is rooted in the Edinburgh community. We currently have a podcast out called Passport People, in which I talk to people from around the world about the places that matter to them. In about a month's time, if you look on iTunes, might be 4 to 6 weeks, but if you look on iTunes, you will also find a podcast called Welcome to the Quids Inn, which is a fictional podcast that I'm making with a group of theatre people up in Edinburgh about 5 young people who get simultaneously hired as reception staff at the Edinburgh branch of a fictional chain of budget hotels. So go check that out, because that's going to be good fun. And we are also planning to launch a Patreon page and thing around April, May sort of time, that is basically saying don't just support the work that we're doing, but support emerging artists, support work being rooted in your local community, and support bringing the arts and bringing it back into the control of us, the audience, and the people who love the art, which is what A, Patreon does, and B, what wonderful podcasts such as the one that you're currently listening to always strive to do.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds like an amazing project. So please do make sure when that's available, let me know, and I'll make sure that we promote that far and wide as well.
Plug!
Yeah.
This guy's a really good guest.
I know.
we need to get him back.
You can come back, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll come to Edinburgh.
Hey, it would be
any
my
excuse to go to
pleasure.
Edinburgh.
Yeah, please do. Please
Great.
do. I'd love to have you up.
Cool, this time next year. Right, Harry, what have you got for me?
Okay, so next week we have another guest.
Oh, we do? This is news to me, okay.
In spirit.
Oh, okay.
We are going to be joined by one of the greatest actors of all time.
Uh-huh.
We're going to be joined by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in spirit.
Dear. What have you got? What are we doing? I mean, I like him. I don't know why I'm saying oh dear. I like.
Okay, well, I've been having a bit like a rough week, so I really feel like I just need something a bit upbeat just to get me right in there.
Okay.
Something that I can be really, really engaged with. Next week we're doing Skyscraper.
Oh, the classic.
Yeah.
The first film I think that Harry, much to my horror, gave 10 out of 10 to on our bonus. Apparently a literal perfect movie, according to Harry. So, okay, I look forward to revisiting it.
Yeah. So join us next week for Skyscraper, everybody. This is going to be something
That's
else.
gonna be fun. I look forward to it. Okay, cool. So
by the way, this is also not a film you need to watch in advance. I mean, no, please do. It's great, but also you already know the entire.
You've
film.
already seen the movie.
Yeah.
If you've seen a movie, you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you once again, Finn.
Thank you.
And thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
And yes, please join us next week, listeners, for Skyscraper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I love you, but you don't know what you're talking about.